Okay, we should be live. Let me just make sure everything's working here. And first thing I'll say in the stream, I'm not gonna like go any further until I get this out the way. If it doesn't work this time, this is the last time I will ever use StreamYard. The only reason I'm still using StreamYard is because I don't want to download too much software onto this new computer because I feel like if I do that, it's not got any like antivirus protection or whatever. So I'm being very very careful with it. I hardly ever put it on the internet. I usually just use it for recording and editing. So yeah, I kind of want to keep it at that if that makes sense. But yeah, if anybody's here already, could you let me know if the audio, you know the deal by now. Let me know if the audio is as it normally is, or does it sound worse? Because my bloody microphone, it's connected, and I know it's connected because the light's on. Unfortunately, the light's orange, and I don't even know what that means. I don't know if that means it's working or it's connected, but it's not working. I've no idea. It's actually been a while since I've done a live stream, and yeah, that didn't seem to happen on my other computer. So yeah, who knows what's happening? Who knows? I guess I'll find out in a minute, won't I? But yeah, we should be live and we can get started. So right, oh, we've got some, yeah, I've got some comments already. Try to remember how to use this. All right, yeah, Owen Foster, how's it going, man? Yeah, I'm glad you could catch it too, man. God bless you. Triple B, how's it going? Good to see you, man. Yeah, it's been a while. How you been? I've actually been listening to some of your videos. I've kind of been using them as background noise. I know I've not been commenting much, but it's because I've been very busy. But I've been using them as background noise, and they've been really cracking me up. I must admit. Yeah, you're doing good, man. Ring Magazine YouTube channel has been pushing this fight hard, almost completely forgetting the fact that Inoue and MJ is soon, which will probably be an actual fight. Yeah, do you know I'd actually forgotten all about Inoue MJ until Del Boy mentioned it. And because I watched back a little bit of Del Boy's live stream that he did yesterday. Didn't manage to catch the whole thing. I was busy, but I watched like kind of the early part of it back. And yeah, he mentioned that and reminded me that the MJ versus Inoue fight's coming up, and that's a really good fight. And like you say, it'll probably be a real fight. And that's one where you have to favor Inoue because he's got the power and the overall athletic ability. But you got to be honest, man. Like man, MJ Akhmadaliev is just one of them guys who's just a solid unit, isn't he? And he always comes to win. He's very durable, can take a shot. He's got decent power in his own right. So I reckon that's a good fight. And it's one of them fights where even though Inoue should win, Inoue has shown a bit of a tendency to be a little bit gun ho in fights and neglects his defense early on, particularly when he fights like somebody who he perceives to be not on his level. So I reckon it's a dangerous fight, particularly early on for Inoue. I think it would be wise for him to take a similar approach to what he did in the Paul Butler fight, where he was a little bit circumspect and he paced himself a little bit more. So yeah, I think that was I think that'd be a wise strategy. I don't think Inoue wants to go in there and try to go to war like he did with Lewis Neary. I think he needs to be a bit more careful this time. Audio all good? Oh, that's good to hear. It's good to hear. Obviously, I won't know myself until I listen to it back, which I rarely do with live streams. Yeah, how's it going, Ralph? Good to see you, man. God bless you guys. What's up? Yeah, how's it going? You complained about women's boxing being everywhere. The hype for this Terence Bum Crawford fight was way worse. It's plasters on every bus stop down the country. Yeah, yeah, they're really, really promoting this fight hard. But let's not forget they did the exact same thing with the Madrimov fight. It didn't really get them anywhere, did it? Like the Madrimov fight was really, really pushed. I mean, they had Crawford like paraded through the streets like he was a king or something. They spent like millions and millions of dollars on trying to build Crawford into a household name for that fight alone, because that was his first fight as kind of a star attraction. Because in the aftermath of the Spence fight, that's what they're telling us, right? But it didn't work out because most of the people in the crowd were there to see Eminem and Andy Ruiz and whoever else. What other clowns were on that card? So Yeah, it wasn't particularly, it wasn't particularly successful, was it? You know? I'll watch it, but it's not this massive extravaganza everyone's making it out as. Yeah, it's look, again, it's the title of the video says it all. It's a battle of the manufactured hype jobs. It's the normie bait, big name protected guys coming together to cash out. It's two guys cashing out. That's all it is. It's kind of like I would akin this fight to back in the day when you would get a fight that was supposed to happen for years and years. Like, for example, Roy Jones and Bernard Hopkins. They were supposed to have a rematch for years and years. It was being talked about who would win and whatnot. And then eventually, when both guys were in their 40s and needed money, that's when they made the rematch. It was just a cynical cash grab. I would akin this fight to something like that. It's not a particularly interesting fight. It's not a particularly consequential fight. It's literally just a cash grab between two guys who are big names in the industry. Crawford's not a big draw. Canelo is, so they tell us. But it's two guys that are big industry fighters, industry plants that are being cashed out because there's nowhere else for them to go, basically. And they don't do real fights. Yes, no, they're just doing some Arnold DB press. Do you do that exercise? Nice one. Do you know? I'm not 100% sure what that is. I've heard of it, but I just tend to stick to like the normal standard lifts. Like powerlifting stuff. I don't really know a lot of the fancy like named stuff. I've probably have done it and not realized. Something like that. Inoue can be defensive when he's on, but recently he's been getting dropped because he has lapses. He's got a good chin though, yeah. That's the thing, like I was saying before, and this is exactly the kind of fight that if Inoue goes in there thinking he's just going to go and blast the guy out, surely with the knockdowns he's had in his last few fights or whatnot, surely he's going to go into this fight knowing I can't take that same approach. It's not going to be it's not going to be wise to go in there and make the exact same mistakes. Like, because what's going to happen is you're going to go in and do exactly what he did against Neary, get dropped, and then realize, oh, hang on a second, I've got an opponent here. I'm not the only guy in the ring. It's not just all about me and my power. I'm actually going to have a game plan here and use some sort of tactics. You'd think he would figure that out before the fight instead of after getting dropped in the first round. You think he'd figure it out before is all I'm saying. So I would like to think Inoue has learned from that and is going to go into this fight and be a bit more circumspect and figure the guy out before he goes in there try to take his head off. But you never know. A lot of fighters, particularly a lot of talented fighters who naturally have good genetics and a lot of power, a lot of these guys can't help themselves. They can't help themselves but go in there try to knock the guy out. It's just like they think they're unbeatable. Are you saying Crawford has rigged fights like Canelo in terms of boxers taking a dive, or is he fraud in terms of contract stipulations? I think in Crawford's case, it's a bit of both. Like Sean Porter took an obvious dive, no doubt about it. That fight was rigged and predetermined. But the situation like with Errol Spence, I think that was more politics. Spence basically being caught at the right time, brain damaged, shell shocked, right on the verge of, weight drained, um, you know, uh, anxious, just right on the verge of getting beaten by anybody. Then they stuck him in the ring with Crawford. That's kind of what I think happened there. Same with the Kell Brook situation. I don't think Brook took a dive. I think he was just so hindered before the fight by the weight stipulation and just general wear and tear that I think they got him in a vulnerable state. So yeah, that's pretty much how I see it. See what the camera's like on this. Again, I'm using my new computer. I know the light's off, so it still looks a bit grainy, but it probably looks all right when the light's on. So who knows? Streamyard's deciding to behave today. Yeah, it's like I've given Streamyard a good talking to, and it's decided to be a good boy. It's not being a dickhead like it was last time, where it was turning me into a robot, sadly. Yeah, 'cause I'm not having it this time. If it lets me down this time, I'm abandoning it. I'm giving it up for adoption, and I'm disinheriting it, and I'm moving on to OBS or whatever. You'll know that. Yeah, how's it going, Apology? How's the training going? I've been training myself. Probably going to be fighting in November. Oh, nice one. Glad to hear it. See, my training has kind of stalled a bit, like because I've been working like very unsociable hours. I've been working back-to-back shifts, working nighttime, and been commuting a lot too. I've not been able to get down to the boxing gym for a couple of weeks now. Oh no, in fact, I think I went once last week, if I remember rightly, and that was it. But I'm definitely going this Wednesday, and I'm gonna start making up for lost time. Like I've been going to my other gym, and I've been like swimming and lifting weights and all that, but I've not been to the boxing gym in like about a week and a half or something, if I remember rightly. So I'm just need to get I just need to sort my schedule out because again I work on sociable hours and it's a little bit random what I'm doing. So yeah, it's stalled a little bit. In a real fight, who wins? Are you on about Crawford, Canelo? Probably Crawford, probably because Canelo is slow, unfit, uncoordinated, and just does the same thing over and over. I think Crawford could outbox him in a real fight, but it probably won't be a real fight. My brother is betting the house on Crawford. Well, me personally, I bet 20 on Crawford, and that was it. I bet 20 quid on him, and I win like 50 if he wins. Because I know better than to make a substantial bet on a fight that's more than likely predetermined. Because you never know the result. You can never, like, even if you know a lot about both guys and you can make a safe bet as to who would win in a real fight, which I probably could in this case. If it's not a real fight, it's never going to be a safe bet, is it? So you're better off not risking it, you know. Crawford has his limitations shown against a B-level fighter in Madrimov. I thought Virgil Ortiz beat comfortably, yeah. Well, again, that tells you everything you need to know about Crawford's, 38-0 record, whatever it is. That tells you the fact that he went life and death and possibly a draw with a 10 fight novice, like a 10-0-1 novice or something like that, you know, who hadn't beaten anybody of note and went on to not be very good in retrospect, you know, being a similar level to someone like Virgil Ortiz. That tells you everything you need to know about how manufactured Terence Crawford's resume is and how a lot of the time accolades in boxing don't really mean anything. Like accolades in boxing just mean, you know, if you've got a lot of accolades, basically, all it means is you happen to have a promoter and a network and all that was on your side and that knew how to get you results. That's basically all that means. So I don't read into it. Like Crawford being like undisputed and lineal champion in 2 divisions doesn't really mean a whole lot when you consider he's basically the same level as someone as like Madrimov, who, I mean, nobody's going to be talking about Madrimov being an all-time great or a Hall of Famer or any of that rubbish, are they? You know, so there's everything you need to know. Is this going to be real? Who do you think will win it? Yeah, I think if it's real, Crawford on points. I don't think he'd knock out Canelo. If it's real, I think he would just outbox him, win pretty much every round, and beat him on points. Everyone came for Eminem and Fatty Ruiz. And Miller got robbed in the card as well. That Cali Mexico judges gave it to Ruiz. Yeah, I thought it was a close fight personally, but I do think Miller won. Like, I wouldn't call it like a flat out robbery. I thought it was like feasible. You could have had it a draw, but I do think personally Miller did win it by a couple of rounds. So I would have given it to Miller personally. But I've seen much worse decisions than that personally. Yeah, how's it going, man? Canelo was manufactured from the start. Not many know he got a gift decision versus Larry Mosley when he was early in his career. Yeah, he also got a gift decision against Miguel Vasquez. Canelo got a bunch of gift decisions, like all through his career. And they were just the guys that didn't lay down for him, you know. Something or yeah, how's it going, Smooth Critical, man? It's been a while. How you been? Why do you think Canelo chose Crawford over Benavidez? I assume it's because Benavidez was more difficult to tame. You know, like if Canelo were to go in there and let's say theoretically lose to Crawford, yeah, it's a bit of a bad look initially, but Crawford is being hyped up by the media and the establishment as an all-time great. You know, it will be kind of akin to his loss to Mayweather, right? It wouldn't be a big deal in the grand scheme of things, but losing to Benavidez, a fellow Mexican, a guy who's on the come up, that would be a bit more of a bad look, I reckon, given Canelo's reputation. And let's be honest, in a real fight, like if Benavidez went in there, and he seems like a difficult guy to compromise, a difficult guy to crack. He's a guy who's kind of hungry for success. Like you put him in there with a guy like Benavidez in a real fight, Canelo will get absolutely demolished. He'll get knocked out, probably inside of 4 rounds. A guy that much bigger, that much stronger, hits that much harder, that much younger as well, and probably fitter at this stage. So mismatch, Canelo would get an absolute battering. Like he'd get a battering in that fight. So I think it was a situation where he's like, we'll have this fake ass exhibition with Crawford and avoid potentially getting a beating off a young, like hungry Mexican. Maybe his ego couldn't take losing to another Mexican. Maybe, I don't know. One thing I'll say about Canelo, he at least comes forward and goes for it, unlike Shakur and Haney Bullfest. Well, he can come forward and go for it when he's got a guy that's in there specifically trying not to hurt him. Again, it's like sparring with a little boy, like sparring with a 3-year-old and just playing with them in the ring, where if you accidentally throw a jab and go a little bit too hard, he might cry or he might like end up with brain damage. You might break his skull or cause him to get crippled the rest of his life. That's because that's what would happen. Let's be honest. If Sergey Kovalev went in there with the intent on setting about Canelo, does Canelo make it out of the second round? I don't think so. And does he leave that fight without taking a career-ending and possibly life-shortening beating? I don't think so. So it's all well and good saying, well, he goes in there and throws punches and takes risks. Yeah, he's allowed to. All right. When he fought Beevil in the first round, Beevil just threw a few jabs. Look at the fear in Canelo's eyes. Look at how terrified he was at the end of the first round. After the fact, just because of a guy throwing some jabs at him and not missing on purpose, that tells you everything you need to know about that guy. He's like a little kid. He's a child-brained, spoiled brat who has literally been brought up in boxing and had everything his own way, And again, that probably answers the questions why you won't fight Benavidez, because Benavidez has probably behind the scenes said what Canelo's all about and knows what he needs to do to beat him, Inoue has to be cautious. MJ is really good and can upset him if he isn't focused. Yeah, I agree. Again, I'm not gonna like bet against Inoue, or at least I don't think I will. Like, I'm not like going out there and picking MJ. I'm not doing that. But it's a situation where I reckon if a guy like Luis Neary can drop Inoue and make him look a little bit clumsy here and there, capitalizing on his overconfidence and over eagerness to get the knockout, I see no reason why on the same night in the same situation MJ couldn't do the same thing and then some. So I think it's a really good fight. I think it's going to be a great fight actually, and I think it'll be possibly one of Inoue's toughest fights since the Donaire fight, if truth be told. I reckon it'll be his toughest fight since that fight, the first one. But again, it's a situation where, again, I'm not going to pick MJ because I've just seen too much of what Inoue's capable of. Inoue's an athletic freak. He hits so hard. He's so resilient. He's so durable. He's so mentally tough. He can get dropped and get up and beat your ass and knock you out. But again, it's just a situation where MJ is so battle hardened in his own right. And he's a guy who himself has power. And I think he's a lot better than Luis Neary. So to me, it's one of them fights. It's very, very intriguing. And I'm looking forward to it. I really am. Yeah, Benavidez would have beaten Canelo up probably. Yeah, in a real fight, Benavidez is far too big. He's far too big, far too strong, far too powerful. It will be like a heavyweight against a middleweight. That's what that fight would be like, on fight night in the ring. Are you still planning on making that Fallout 4 review? Yes. I know you got a lot on your plate, but I think it would be a great insightful vid for someone like myself who likes the game. Yep. Well, I actually, on that note, I just got done completing Fallout 4 and Fallout 3. I just played both of them. And I've got a whole bunch of footage. And the Fallout 4 review is going to be coming in November. on its 10th anniversary. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Got a lot to say there. It's going to be a long ass video and an interesting one too. Yeah, how's it going, Bruce? Good to see you again, man. God bless you. Crawford hasn't beaten one Hall of Fame worthy fighter. Yeah, of course he hasn't. And again, I've covered it all in the past. You know, again, that record, that 38-0, whatever it is, record, him going life and death with a guy like Madrimov, a 10-0 prospect, says it all. It tells you everything you need to know about the consequence and legitimacy of that record. You know, honestly, they should give Canelo the win since Crawford is old and probably retiring soon. Yeah, well, they're both getting on, aren't they? They're both like, mid-30s now, something like that. So yeah. Oh, Crawford, he's late 30s. I think he's a bit older. They now have Jake Paul fighting, and supposedly Mayweather and Mike Tyson are going to fight. Basically, boxing is WWE now. Yeah. Again, but it's interesting to me how boxing fans can see it when it comes to these exhibitions. Like they can see it with Jake Paul. When Jake Paul fights and he's fighting someone like Mike Tyson, and Mike Tyson is visibly and verifiably pulling his punches, and Jake Paul is doing the same. Boxing fans are smart enough, and even casual fans are smart enough to see that and understand that it's an exhibition, that it's WWE, that it's sports entertainment, that it's not an actual fight. You know, with guys putting it all on the line and trying to take each other out. It's not, it's not an actual, genuine, legitimate competition. They understand it, but for whatever reason, and this boggles my mind, they can't see it with Canelo, and they can't see it with Mayweather, and they can't see it with Shakur Stevenson. They can't see it when these guys have got guys in the ring literally missing punches on purpose, not capitalizing on the fundamental mistakes that these guys make, and essentially just BSing around and playing patty cake. They can see it with those guys, Jake Paul and whatnot, but they can't see it with the likes of Canelo. It boggles my mind. It genuinely does. And I'm sick of talking about it, as you guys can probably guess. Nordic, are you a fan of Winky Wright since you're a fan of the High Guard? Wanted to know your opinion on him. Well, I've been meaning to do a retrospective on Winky Wright for a long time. I think he was one of the best defensive fighters of that era. Like, very, very good high guard, very good. Like, it was kind of an active high guard. He was very good at parrying his opponent's punches away, like riding them, minimizing their effect, and then getting close to them and like ripping the body inside. He was a very, very good, like, unit of a guy. He was a very compact fighter. And if you want to see some interesting fights, check out his fight with Jermaine Taylor, a fight that the vast majority of people would agree he won that fight pretty clearly. Jermaine Taylor was throwing like everything at him and couldn't penetrate the guard, couldn't land anything clean. And Winky Wright kind of had like a low volume, but whenever he let his hands go, he landed flush and landed very, very well. And a lot of people actually think he beat Bernard Hopkins as well, who had a massive size advantage on him, despite the fact, Winky Wright moved up. And I believe he moved up from middleweight to fight Hopkins at light heavyweight, and he was able to back him up all night. And he looked like the stronger and fitter guy in there. So, yeah, I think Winky Wright was underrated. I think he was a very good boxer, actually. I really do. What's your opinion on the idea Canelo is bigger and stronger than Crawford? Well, he's bigger in the sense that he's walked around at a heavier weight and he's competed at a heavier weight. But Crawford is a guy who has probably he's a little bit taller. He's got bigger hands. He's a little bit more rangy. Seems to have more reach. Like I just think it's dimensionally there's not much of a difference. But Canelo has gotten used to being at higher weight division. So yeah, I can see why people think he's bigger. I don't necessarily know about him being stronger because Terence Crawford is to give him his due, is a very strong man. Like he is insanely strong. Like go and look at some of Crawford's strength and conditioning training that he does. Like look at his deadlift and whatnot. Like Terence Crawford is a very, very strong man. And he does a lot of wrestling too. So I think there's a chance he might even be stronger. I've never seen Canelo wrestle an opponent. I've seen Crawford wrestle opponents. He might be stronger. I think the Crawford Madrimov bout went wrong for Crawford. Let's not forget Crawford's gloves exploded beforehand. Maybe the plan was to have an explosive win to build up the Canelo bout. Yeah. Well, again, that's because he no longer had top rank and that whole cult supporting him. So he wasn't able to do what he did with Avanesian, where he literally went in there with probably steel in his gloves or whatever. Because I've never seen a fight where both of a guy's gloves blow up during a fight. I've never seen that before. But yeah, I definitely don't think he had that when he was in the ring with Madrimov, and it could tell because he didn't really have much of an effect on Madrimov when he caught him. So yeah, it tells you everything about that, doesn't it? Lie down and get paid more, or fight Canelo and get robbed. Your choice. Yeah, exactly. You lie down, you might get a nice little bonus, like in the UFC where you get bonuses for a knockout. Benavidez is 6'1" and weighs 200 pounds. When he enters that ring, he's too big for Canelo. There's no way whatsoever that a man Canelo's size can legitimately beat somebody Benavidez's size in the ring unless he has like freakish athletic ability, unless he is like a technical wizard, like somebody like Lomachenko, for example. You could see figuring out a guy that much bigger than him, using footwork and positioning and stuff like that, angles, speed, stamina, and just peppering a guy like that, like Manny Pacquiao fighting Margarito. Margarito was so much bigger than Pacquiao that it should have been a mismatch, but Pacquiao was so much faster on his feet and so much more technically astute that he was able to take away that advantage. But even at that fight still took a lot out of Pacquiao. He had to work his ass off and train his ass off to get through that fight. So are you telling me Canelo, with the way he fights, just plodding forward and throwing the same overhand shot over and over again, is he going to be able to do that against essentially a heavyweight? Is he going to be able to do that against a guy like 6 inches taller and like 40 pounds heavier or 20, 25 pounds heavier? Of course, no, he would get smashed in that fight, especially a guy like Benavidez, who's a tough guy who will throw down on the inside with anybody. Like he's not going to beat that guy in a real fight. No chance. Yeah, how's it going, man? Yeah, of course it'll be a ball fest. It'll be a sparring session, as far as I'm concerned. Like all of Canelo's fights. Yeah, how's it going, Del Boy? God bless you, man. Looking forward to the MJ fight. It's at least going to be And I caught the early part of your live stream yesterday. I wasn't able to watch the whole thing, but I went and watched the early part, and I agree exactly with what you were saying about MJ and Inoue. I think it's a situation where although Inoue is rightfully the favorite and he is the better fighter, MJ has the kind of attributes where if Inoue fights foolishly like he did against Neary, he could very well get dropped and hurt in that fight and possibly even beaten. Like, it would not shock me. I'm not going to pick Inoue. I mean, I'm not going to pick MJ, but Inoue losing that fight, I agree. It would not shock me. It certainly wouldn't. I certainly agree there. But it is a great fight. Would you say Inoue's the greatest Japan fighter, pound for pound? Yeah, I think that's probably not arguable. I think it's pretty obvious. I mean, no one else in the history of Japanese boxing has been a multi-division undisputed lineal champion, have they? Like, nobody. So I don't. If we're going on accolades and that, I don't think, or resume, I don't think anybody in Japanese boxing comes close. I had a dream Mayweather in a similar way to Ward. Sorry, let me reread that. I had a dream Crawford won in a similar way to Mayweather, but his trainer went into cardiac arrest mid-fight and gave a dying speech about boxing. Do you know that could actually happen? Looking at that guy, Bomac. Can you imagine that? Bomac's just like, be first, hit that body. He don't like it to the body. Hey, you throw that jab. Hey, there you go. And then all of a sudden he's like, I'm hot. And he just passes out ringside. I could just see that happening as well. Imagine. Inoue been dropped 3 times. He's starting to look beatable. You think he beats Nakatani? Nakatani would be a challenge, but I still think Inoue's physical strength, his power, and his explosivity is a little bit more than what Nakatani's ever dealt with. But it would be a good fight. It really would. Tony Bellew versus Enzo Macronelli at cruiserweight. Someone's getting stopped. I think Macronelli would knock out Tony Bellew. I think he knocks him out. Give Bellew a puncher's chance, and that's it. But nah, Macronelli would beat his ass and knock him out, I think. Prime for prime. Like, I don't think Bellew has anywhere near the power that the guys who beat Macronelli in his prime did, guys like Denis Lebedev and whatnot. Battle of the frauds this weekend, hopefully. All as well, yeah. You never know, maybe the fight will be a draw. A manufactured draw, you never know. Canelo hasn't legitimately beaten one Hall of Fame worthy fighter. No, he hasn't. He's either gotten a gift decision or the fight's just been straight up fixed, He hasn't legitimately beaten nobody, Genuinely, I don't care about this fight. It'll be a 12-round bore fest. I agree. It'll probably just be a 12-round sparring session. And what will probably happen is Crawford will probably win. It'll be close on the scorecards, and Canelo will ride off into the sunset and talk about how he is the next Mayweather or something like that. I don't know. He was the born ready. Yeah. I'll do a Winky Wright video at some point, and you'll be glad to know. I know. I'm like a stuck record at this point, but I've actually got all my hardware with me right now. I've got my computer. I've got my capture card. I've got my my microphone. I've got a TV here now. Like, I've got everything ready because I've been like commuting around so much and again working such weird hours. I've not had like all my stuff with me at one time, and I've not had all my I've not been able to like really dedicate to anything. But I've got everything with me at the moment, so there's nothing stopping me. So I will get to work. Jake Paul has better fights than Sugar. Yeah. It's funny. They're saying that Jake Paul is going to fight Tank Davis. See, and people are saying that Tank Davis will take a dive, that it'll be fixed, like all of Jake Paul's fights. I think, to be perfectly honest, look, I know that Tank Davis has competed professionally and arguably legitimately, whereas Jake Paul hasn't. But see if that was a real fight. Let's say ignore like the weight stipulations or whatever's going to be taking place or whatever special rules are in place. See if that was just a flat out fight. If they were to just fight at cruiserweight, see, because that's where Jake Paul fights, right? Just stick Tank Davis in the ring at cruiserweight with Jake Paul. I actually think Jake Paul's got a pretty good chance of winning because he's just so much bigger and he probably so much stronger as well. Like, Tank Davis would go into the ring fat and slower than ever. And, Jake Paul probably just maul him and stop him, potentially. Like, I don't see why not. Like, again, it's like you take a novice boxer, but one that's, like, way bigger and put him in with, like, a decent pro, but one that's, like, off his size and who's on the slide, who was never really that good to begin with, a bit manufactured, in my opinion, fundamentally flawed, poor defense and all that. I'd give Jake Paul a chance in that fight if it was real. I think he'd have a good chance of winning. Probably even make him favourite. Winky Wright beat Mosley twice. Yeah, he did. Drew with Taylor and schooled Trinidad. He was a good fighter. He also had a good bout with Fernando Vargas. Yeah, a lot of people forget about the Mosley fights. Like, he actually schooled him. Didn't he beat? Didn't he fight Vernon Forrest as well? I forget who won that fight, or if they actually fought. I know Vernon Forrest beat Mosley. I forget if him and Winky Wright fought. Someone's telling me they did. I'm sure one of you guys will tell me. I'm a big Virgil Ortiz fan. I think he's a proper fighter, in my opinion. Just not great management. What do you think of him? Yeah, I really rated Virgil Ortiz early on. When I first watched him, I thought, wow, this guy's great, and he's going to go really far. See, when he had that illness though, the rhabdomyosis, because that illness is a major thing. It's not something you just recover from quickly. I kind of thought we'd seen the best of him, and he's going to be very vulnerable. And when he had that fight on the comeback trail where he fought, what's his name, Baran, what's the guy's name he fought, the Ukrainian guy or whatever, I forget, but I thought that guy beat him. I thought the guy who knocked out Ishe Smith, that guy. Or Ishmael Davis, whatever it is. I'm forgetting all these fighters' names. But yeah, that Eastern European guy that I thought beat Virgil Ortiz. When I saw that fight, Boachuk, that was it, Boachuk. I thought he beat Virgil Ortiz, and I thought he beat him pretty badly. And I didn't think Virgil Ortiz would really go beyond that. But when I saw what he did to Madrimov, um, I was quite impressed. Like, because again, Madrimov, as we know, is on the same level as Crawford in terms of technical ability. You know, he was able to box with Crawford and go pretty much even Stevens with him. So Virgil Ortiz kind of separating himself from Madrimov like that is impressive, and he's probably gotten over his illness for the most part, and he's on the mend now. So he's got a pretty high ceiling if he takes it seriously, and if he doesn't fall into that whole trap that a lot of Mexican fighters fall into, where they get too emotional and way too gun ho and end up getting themselves beaten up and all that. I think if he keeps improving technically, he'll be one of the best, if not the best fighters at 154. And I think that's the best division for him right now, So I think he's very good. I really do. Yeah, how's it going, Thomas? God bless you, man. Yeah, Crawford is strong. He's a very, very strong guy. Oh yeah, Wardley versus Joe Parker. That's a good fight. Like, I think Parker will school him, but Wardley, you have to give him a puncher's chance because Wardley's a bad, bad guy. Like, big, scary, hard man, isn't he? So you never know. He might go in there and set about him and get the better of him. But I don't see it happening. I favour Parker to win that fight, probably on points. I think he's going to outbox him. I genuinely do. Yeah, yeah. In a real fight, Callum Smith way too big for Canelo. Like, he would knock him out. He's just too big. Okay, size matters in boxing. Don't let anybody tell you it doesn't. Anyone who says it doesn't know what they're talking about. Where's the fighter safety crowd after the David fight? Crawford could have killed him. Just goes to show no one really cares. Yeah, he could have given that guy brain damage by bludgeoning him with egg weights or whatever. Yeah, where's the egg weight crowd at? Where's the Fury cheated, man? He lowered his gloves. He put his life at risk. He should be in prison for attempted murder. Where's all them guys at talking about Crawford? I thought it was all about fighter safety. I thought we cared about these guys. I thought you don't play boxing and all that rubbish. I thought. Usyk's a perfect example of beating people twice his size due to skill and athleticism. Yep, absolutely. He uses positioning, angles, stamina, speed, footwork, technical, punching technique. Making sure he gets to the target quicker. Usyk is a guy who works extra hard to be one step ahead of his opponent in every aspect in order to overcome the size advantage. Canelo just walks forward and throws a right hand and doesn't get his head taken off. I saw that video of the migrant guy on the yeah, sad state the UK is in. Sally. Yeah, it was the bus actually. I was going to talk about that. I wasn't sure really how to go into much detail. As far as I'm aware, I spoke to the mother of the kid, who was involved. Like, I actually contacted her online because she's from the same like neighborhood as me, and according to her, she says that there's like a manhunt out for the guy, and the police are looking for him. And apparently, and this is just what I've heard from like general gossip in the community, apparently that guy was seen getting his cock out in front of children, and in his ad previous, and he just goes around like bothering people and that. So yeah, I reckon he's going to get lifted. But I know what'll happen. The police will protect him. They'll protect him. That's what'll happen. They'll make sure he gets moved. He'll probably get moved to another community in the city, and he'll just do the same thing again because that's what always happens to them. But yeah, should I tell you guys what happened? Like should I like describe the whole encounter? I don't know if I should bother, but I will if you guys want me to. It's not particularly interesting, but yeah, it was a situation where it was very, very disturbing. And it just goes to and like the mother actually told me afterwards. She said she told me online she's scared to even go out with her kid now herself. Like, she's got to have a man with her now because and a lot of other like mothers in the area are saying the same thing. Like, they're scared to let their kids out themselves. They're scared to take them out themselves. And it's that's just the state of this place. That's what's happening now. Remember the German dude who sparked Enzo? He stopped boxing shortly after. His name was Frankel, or so. Yeah, Alexander Frankel, I think his name was. That was a sickening knockout as well. Brutal. I forget. Didn't something happen to that guy? Like, didn't I'm sure I remember. I read a while ago something happened, forced him to retire. I forget what that was exactly. Something along those lines. UK is screwed, man. I'm planning to leave. Yeah, I agree, man. This country's it's getting a disgrace now. They're just nutcases running wild, you know. We need your videos of reviewing the careers of different boxers. Back they're so goated. I also think you should try careers of old timers. Yeah, I'm going to be doing some old time. The one I've been wanting to do for a while, but I really want to do it justice is Rocky Marciano. Um, I really, really want to. I really want to do a proper video about him, but I want to do it justice because I think he's a fighter who's generally disrespected and underrated by most. You know, Paul's massive compared to Tank. It's just going to be a fix. Same Shane Roach never got the rematch. Yeah, well, the rematch was scheduled, I'm sure, but they ended up just what was it they did? Like they said they had some excuse for it not happening. Was it a contractual thing or whatever? I don't know. It's just it just seemed like it was on BoxRec. It was all signed apparently, and then next thing we hear, he's fighting Jake Paul. Like what's that all about? I don't know. It's weird, man. Crocker Donovan too. Probably Donovan. Do you know, I'm kind of hoping Crocker wins because just to shut all the normies up, because the first fight was a perfectly fair result. Donovan tried to cheat. He fouled excessively throughout the fight, ended the fight on a foul, and got rightfully disqualified. Now, he was the better fighter of the two, but that's irrelevant. The fact of the matter is he broke the rules and he got himself disqualified. So I'm kind of hoping Crocker wins the rematch just to shut up all the normies who are saying it was a robbery because it wasn't. But I think Donovan will win this time. I think he's got his number. I think he's the bigger, more durable fighter, and he's just more gifted. He's more athletically gifted. I think he'll win, but I'm rooting for Crocker. Put it that way. Yeah, did they not box? I must have got them confused with Mosley and Vernon Forrest. I'm getting that fight confused with Winky Wright, Vernon Forrest, because I know Winky Wright fought and because both of them beat Mosley, didn't they? For some reason, I had it in my head that they fought each other. I don't know. I don't know what that's all about. Just probably a false memory or confusion or something. If you know Dominic Barry, he's a pro out of Texas and a new one of Jake's sparring partners. He hits pretty hard apparently. So Tank could lose, yeah. I mean, just based on size and strength, he could lose. Again, it's a cruiserweight against a lightweight, basically. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he beat him, just based on that alone, you know. Yeah, he definitely needs a rematch. Boachuk wanted the rematch and stuff, but I don't think Golden Boy wanted it. Yeah. Yeah, see, I thought Boachuk won that fight clearly, but after seeing what happened against Madrimov, I do think um, Ortiz might have improved a bit since that fight. So I'd probably favour him in the rematch. I think he might actually win the rematch, to be honest. Like win it legitimately. I believed I asked this the last stream, but I couldn't hear it due to the stream cutting out. Who Jerry Cooney versus Bone Crusher Smith? Probably Jerry Cooney on points. Probably it's hard, and he was a bigger puncher too. Bone Crusher Smith was like he was durable, but not that good in my opinion. Just a tough guy. Probably Cooney on points, I'd say. White went down too easily. It certainly looked suspicious. I don't think it was a dive. White just so past it. Itam was young, strong, athletic, fresh. Personally, I think it was a dive. I mean, Dillian White even said going into the fight, he even said he was going down in the first 2 rounds. So, yeah, I wouldn't doubt that fight was a dive. You know, manhunt and police doing their job. Did I wake up in an alternate reality? Yeah, that's just what I heard. What I heard is they're waiting for the CCTV from the bus to come back because apparently it takes days to process. And yeah, they're trying to find the guy, and when they do, they're gonna. I'm assuming they're just gonna move him from the community. But yeah, let me tell you guys what happened. Basically, what happened is, so I got on the bus and I sat at the front, right? So I sat near the driver. I was like on my way to the gym, and I was working later that night, so I was gonna go to the gym first, then go to work. And then basically, like, why I hear that there's this African guy, he's an immigrant,
and he's arguing with these two women. Like the two women are both mothers. They've got their own kid. I don't think they even knew each other, but they were both. One of them had a baby in a pram, and the other one had like a little boy. I think he was like 3 years old or something. And I could just see them both arguing with this guy, and I didn't get involved. I completely ignored it. But basically, I heard one of them say that he touched the kid, this, that, and the other. I later found out it was actually worse than that. I later found out that I didn't see this, but because it was right before I got on. But I later found out that he grabbed the kid, the little 3-year-old boy, and tried to lick him. That was what apparently happened, and that's why the two mothers were kicking off at him. So basically, he starts getting off the bus, and I don't think he meant to get off the bus. It's just that because of all the aggro he was getting from these two women, he decided to get off. But then, as he got off, he went up to the window and he starts shouting at the mother through the window. He's like shouting obscenities at her through the window, like acting really aggressive. And then there's this old guy who's getting on, like must have been like 50s or 60s or whatever. He's getting on, and all he sees is this African guy shouting at this woman who's got a kid through a window. So he shouts over to him, typical Scottish man, as you do. He's like, "Oh, who are you shouting at?" As if to say, "Wind your neck in and stop having a go at the woman." And then, I shit you not, this African guy, it was like I couldn't believe it. It was like a rabid dog. Like he charged at the old guy, like charged to the front of the bus where the old guy was, and literally ragdolled him. So like he grabbed the old guy by his shirt and like slammed him into the bus, like, and he hit the little door bit where the driver was, which was right next to where I was sitting. So I immediately, and up until that point, I was trying not to get involved. But at that point, I was like, all right, that's it. I'm like, oh, oh, oh. So I jumped up, like I do, again, working security. And I jumped up in between them and just pushed the guy away from the old guy and pushed him off the bus. And just all this with one hand. And I kept him at bay. And I was like, go home. I was like, bugger off, just leave. And then the guy, like, he backed away because I was a lot bigger than him. And again, you see me in person, I'm quite a big guy, right? So, and this guy wasn't particularly big, right? And he was like, he starts like shouting at me in gibberish as if I didn't do nothing, blah blah blah. He's pointing at the woman and trying to justify, trying to act like he done nothing wrong. And I'm like, bear in mind, I've literally just seen him charge at an old man and grab him and like slam the guy onto the bus. I don't know why he did it. I can't get my head around it. Like why he got off the bus, came back and grabbed the old guy and pushed him on the bus. I don't understand it. It was literally like just a rabid animal. But I was telling the guy, I was standing at the bus door with my hand out, not letting him back on. And I told him, go home. I was like, just leave, just go. And then after about a minute or so, of me trying to get him to leave, he just left. And then the driver called the police. And it just so happened that the police station was right round the corner from the bus. And the two police officers came on, a guy and a woman, and they took my details, but thankfully they didn't need a statement from me. All they needed was my details, because I didn't tell them like how involved I was. I didn't tell them that I got the guy off the bus and all that. I just said, yeah, there was a commotion. He grabbed the old guy, and whatnot. So they wanted a statement from the mother, and they wanted a statement from the old guy. And yeah, basically the mother told me afterwards that he grabbed the little kid and tried to lick him. So that's why she was kicking off at him, telling him not to touch the kid. And then he started kicking off at her. And then that was as I was getting on, that was when it was all starting. But yeah, the only reason I got involved is because he charged at the old guy and grabbed him, and he was gonna hurt him. Like I could see it in his eyes. He was like ready to do this old guy for no reason. But see when I jumped in between them and pushed him off, he literally, like, you see the look on his face completely changed. He went from I'm gonna murder this guy to, oh, whoa, I did nothing wrong. It was like when a guy bigger than him, John, went for him. It was just he realized he wasn't about that, you know what I mean? And he ended up just leaving, But yeah, that was what happened. A bit of a weird situation. And then you see the video as well that the lady took. I didn't take that video. She did. That was him going up to the window after leaving and making weird facial expressions at her and all that. It was acting very, very strange. I think the guy was mentally ill. I think he was just a weirdo, to be honest, you know. But yeah, it's crazy to think you can't take a kid on a bus in the middle of the day without them getting grabbed by someone. You know, it's crazy to think about. You know, that guy who scared that child in the bus sounds like Purple Aki guy. Yeah, that guy was a creep. You see that Purple Aki? Yeah, that guy was a complete degenerate. Do you know? I don't understand. See, to this day, I cannot understand how the people of Liverpool allowed that guy to walk around alive. Like I don't understand it. Like that guy literally was like sodomizing little boys, going, going like feeling them up and stuff, and just creeping everybody out, intimidating them. And he was a big scary guy as well. And I cannot believe the people of Liverpool allowed that guy to walk the streets. Like there's actually videos of him at the shops and everything, and videos of him walking the streets. People are like standing around watching. I'm like, how can you let that guy just hang about that community? It's shocking, man. Shocking. Crazy to think about. Letting too many dodgy people in the UK. Yeah, again, you're letting people in, and look, we can argue all day about whether it's a racial thing, whether it's a cultural thing, or like it's just people who are like verifiably criminals in their own country, leaving to come here and then acting the same way, or acting in a way they wouldn't get away with there, if that makes sense. It just look, it doesn't take a genius to know that you cannot allow certain types of people with certain cultural values, or people who don't share these values into this country. You can't. People have to either assimilate or leave. It's that simple, you know. Women and children can't be alone. It's too sketchy, not without a man or a gun. Yeah, exactly. And again, it's like that happened 2 times. Like because again, you saw my other video with that female African woman who grabbed that other boy. That's 2 times on the same bus route. It was in the same area and everything that's happened while I was there. Just imagine the times it's happened when I wasn't there. Like I saw another video. I don't know if you guys saw it, but there was it was another video from Glasgow, and it was a Somalian immigrant. He got on a bus, and he's talking about committing acts of terrorism. He's talking about like blowing up Jews and all that, and you know, going on and on about Hamas and Israel and all that. And he's like saying it out loud on the bus. And some Scottish guy who's just on his way to work was telling him to shut his mouth and all that. It was quite funny. It was the kind of the interaction they had. But just imagine if that guy's on the bus and it's just like women and children on the bus and no one else. What you're supposed to do? It's scary to think about. Got to have eyes in the back of your head nowadays, you know. Canelo, incredibly flat-footed, doesn't even throw combinations, just throws a telegraphed hook with the chin in the air like once or twice, then resets, somehow beats these guys twice the size of him. Must be very strong. Yeah, Canelo, like literally, Canelo's that strong. He can literally just plod the canvas, pound the canvas with his feet and throw an overhand right. And his opponents are so scared. They're so scared of this overhand right that they have to stand there with their hands down and let it hit them, and go down like a sack of spuds, and not, take a step back and throw a counter or step in with a jab or something, like Kovalev not doing the things he normally does. It's hilarious and disturbing that people can't see it at the same time, The left hook that Franco landed on Enzo is one of the most brutal knockouts ever. Enzo flopped like a fish, yeah. Enzo was the original David Price. Like, he knocked a lot of opponents out, but he also had some very iconic knockout losses of his own, That's what that was. That's what it's like. I mean, I watched Sam Noakes fight. I usually don't watch the UK national live boxing, but he's pretty good. Thoughts on him versus Abdullah Meshin. I don't think I've ever seen Sam Noakes fight. Abdullah Meshin looks pretty good, though, but I don't think I've ever seen Sam Noakes fight. Don't think I've ever watched him even once. I have a really weird feeling about Inoue versus MJ. Slight feeling might see a decline with Inoue actually goes the distance for the first time in ages. Yeah, I could see it going the distance. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think MJ's ever been stopped or even come close to being stopped. He's fought some big punchers. So, yeah, I think MJ's the kind of guy who has what it takes to potentially give Inoue his toughest fight since Donaire. I genuinely think so. Jermaine Franklin versus Ivan Ditchko. Ivan Ditchko has done absolutely nothing worth mentioning since the Olympics. So well over a decade now, that guy's been in and out of the pros, doing nothing, fighting nobody, and he's just wasted his career. And he's what, like late 30s now or something? I just don't see him going anywhere. He'll probably beat Jermaine Franklin, probably on points, but don't see that guy being world champion personally. I don't see him even coming close. Genuinely baffles me how people see the clear technical flaws of Canelo Alvarez, along with his resume full of questionable opposition, and still make arguments for him to be the Mexican GOAT. Crazy, yeah. Again, need I really say any more about that? It's as manufactured as you could possibly get for a fighter, you know. Kind of crazy how Virgil Ortiz hasn't fought for a world title, yeah. And again, I think he would have fought for maybe even a couple of world titles had he not had that illness. You know, that illness which was probably brought on by being underfed and overtrained. I think it's a situation where he just couldn't make welterweight, but he was starving himself and dehydrating himself to do so, and it cost him years off his career, his prime years probably. But I think he'll probably win a title at 154. I would be very surprised if he didn't win at least one world title at some point in his career. I very would. I very much would. I mean, it was Crawford's mandatory at welterweight, remember? And that's despite being drained, you know? Mike Tyson's been quite disappointing in recent times. Now he'll let Mayweather school him in that exhibition. Also, Paul Fight was a joke. Tyson's pretty strange, though, that guy, yeah. Tyson probably just needs the money. He's probably desperate for money. He's probably, like, spent it all on cocaine or whatever. And, yeah, I don't know, man. It's just cynical cash grabs, isn't it? They'll move the bus stop dude to a nice flat in another area. Yeah, they'll move him to like Milton or somewhere like, you know, some nice place that doesn't have enough bag snatchers and could do with a bit of cultural enrichment. They'll send him to a place like that probably. Yeah, if he's going around licking children, he needs locking up because clearly he's insane, you know. But probably won't happen because people have got away with worse, haven't they, you know. Bobby Ches, Iran Barkley, Vander Holyfield, Dwight Quay, top light heavyweights. Yeah, they were great light heavyweights of their day, you know. I remember hearing a story of a mother who killed a sick old peeve who had raped her two boys. When he was arrested, he was let out, allowed to stay in the same area where the boys live. Sarah Sands, the woman was called. You know, that doesn't surprise me one bit. Like the law is very, very lenient, by the way, in this country on child sex offenders. Like just recently, here's another thing that happened. There was this guy. The guy was from Irvine, right? And he was moved to an area where I work. And I was basically walking through the street, and there was like a big mob of women at the bottom of the street standing outside this apartment complex. And one of them said to me, they're like, "Do you live here?" And I was like, no, I'm just passing through. And I'm like, "Why?" And she's like, "Oh, there's a guy in that building. We've just looked him up, and he's a registered pedophile, registered child rapist. He raped a 12-year-old girl in 2016, I think." And I was like, "All right, that's messed up." And yeah, they were trying to get him out. They were trying to get him moved from the community because he was using a fake name and all that. And basically, I did some research on the guy. It was a guy from Irvine originally, right? Apparently, he got like less than 2 years in prison. He apparently raped a 12-year-old girl, got her pregnant and everything, and he got 2 years in prison. That was it. I'm like, are you kidding me? 2 years? Like, you get more than that for bloody tax evasion. It's like the law is so. I don't know why the law in this country is so lenient on people who perform those acts. Like, I can't get my head around it. But then they get out and they rehome them. And all that happens is people find out who they are and it causes angry mobs and they get moved again. And they're supposed to not be allowed within a certain distance from a school. But weirdly enough, I've noticed some of them tend to get moved to areas where there's a school nearby. And I know there's a lot of schools, but a lot of them seem to be very, very close to schools when they get rehomed and moved around. I don't get it. The law is very strange when it comes to things like that in this country. You know, I don't know what it's like in America or what the like if he did the same thing in America, I don't know what the sentence would have been. You know. some crazy people in the current world. People should learn to defend themselves so they can always be prepared. Let's be honest. Yeah, everybody, man, woman, child, everybody should learn self-defense. Learn how to defend yourself, and everywhere you go, be ready to fight. Because if you're not, it could be the end of your life. Could be easily. Because I was watching a video yesterday, right? It was one of them body cam videos in America, and it was this cop, and I don't know if you guys have seen it, but this is a good highlight of what you're talking about, right? So this cop got called to do a check, right? Because some guy was loitering around a property that he didn't belong at, right? He was like hanging about there. He was setting fires and like acting weird. So the owners called the police just to say, "Can you have a word with this guy? Tell him to leave." So the copper gets out his car, and he gets up and he says to the guy, he's like, "Hi, how you doing?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, hi, what's up?" And then the cop says to him, "Are you the one that called?" Because the cop doesn't know. He thought he's thinking either this is the guy who's loitering, or it's the guy who called the police and owns the property. And then the guy just pulls out a knife and then like charges at the cop and stabs him to death. Like and I couldn't believe it. I was actually in tears almost watching it. I'm like, this guy. It shows you the whole body cam footage. The cop gets out the car. He's like humming to himself. It's just a happy day doing his job. And then this guy, this psycho, this absolute psycho, stabs him to death for no reason. Literally just pulls a kitchen knife out his arse or whatever, and just charges at the guy, stabs him like 14 times, stabs him in the back of the neck and everything. And the cop like didn't even have a chance to reach for his gun or run away or anything. It just goes to show you, like, you cannot take any chances. You can't take any chances whatsoever. And it's like that's why, like, you know people get angry with cops when cops pull out their gun and shoot a guy when a guy makes like a sudden movement or a guy pulls out a knife or something. This is why cops shoot them. This is why they're trained to shoot on sight. And I have absolutely no argument with it, because situations like that just got to show you, like, you cannot let your guard down for a second, and you cannot take any chances. Even with my job, I know it's made me think I cannot take any chances, a lot and I've taken a few in recent weeks, which I shouldn't have, Yeah, how's it going, man? Good to see you here, man. God bless you. God bless California. Yeah, no iron brew in Africa. That's why he's so small. Yeah, maybe if he had some iron brew, he wouldn't be so angry, and he wouldn't be so eager to get his hands on children and that. I don't know. These guys need something to sort them out, don't they? Some of them. Stormer must be feeding him. Yeah, Stormer might have. He might have like invited him over personally. Give the guy a knighthood. Hey, they gave Jimmy Savile a knighthood, so why not give that guy one? Not enough Scottish oats either. Oh, I love Scottish oats. Nice bit of porridge. Yeah, give him some haggis. I know. Give him a haggis, neeps and tatties, and then he'll properly assimilate once he's had it. He'll be like, "All right, pal, how you doing?" That'll be him after that. Crazy to think about a nation like the UK existed for thousands of years, a continuous line of generations and culture. It'll be gone in less than 100 years. Do you know, you could argue it's already gone. You could honestly argue that with the state of things now, Yeah, they'll use mental health as the excuse. But to me, the mental health excuse isn't so much an excuse as far as I'm concerned. It actually makes the situation worse. Let's say, because if you do something wrong, you can say, you can hold your hands up. Look, what I did was wrong. I know it was wrong. I'll face the consequences. I'll do my time, and I won't do it again. I'm sorry, right? Or you could say, it's not my fault. I have mental health. I'm schizophrenic. Blah blah blah. It's mental health excuse. If you're saying that, then what you're also saying is you're essentially saying that you're a danger to the public and you need to be locked up. If you're saying you have no control over your actions because of mental health, then you're saying essentially, by that logic, that you need to be sectioned because you cannot be trusted to be left alone unsupervised. So that's not a good thing. Like, it doesn't make your situation any better to say that you couldn't control yourself because of mental health. That makes your situation worse, That means instead of spending a couple of years in prison and doing your time, you need to spend the rest of your life in an institution. That's literally what that means. You should be in an asylum. You should be sectioned. That's literally what that means. So it doesn't make the situation any better, and it's not a very good excuse, you know. I guess some things are more important to some in Liverpool. Yeah. Look. I guess watching Hollyoaks is more important than stopping a big like African guy who's going around bumming kids. I guess that's more important, you know. Like button touched at Mr. Nordic Warrior. Good conversation. Salute from California. Yeah, same to you, man. Appreciate it. Remember to hit that like button. Pan that like button. Mental ill or not, he knows deep down what he's doing is wrong. The Lord gave us the Holy Spirit to know right from wrong. Exactly. You know, and it's like, if again, it's like I was saying, if you're schizophrenic, right, and that's the reason why you do evil things, then you're a danger to the public, and you should be sectioned. And again, if you're a genuine like believing born again Christian, you know instinctively that stuff is wrong, you know. Yeah, how's it going, man? God bless you. Who got on the fight and who do you think wins? Right now, I'm going with Crawford on points in kind of a sparring session, but again, it could go either way with these guys. You know, they're both industry plants, and it could honestly go either way. It really just depends on who Turkey and the establishment want to win. You know, not cool. Blessed are the peacekeepers. Thank you for protecting we. Yeah, appreciate it, man. Guess it's my job, even when I'm not being paid. You know. God bless you. Even if all the colored people go, this country is still free. Yeah, because again, it's not colored people that's the problem. It's culture that's the problem. You know, it's people who cannot and will not assimilate. You know, your area isn't affected by mass migration compared to others. Too puts it in this. But yeah, see, the area I live, you know, my community is not affected anywhere near as much as somewhere like Nottingham or London or somewhere like that. It's not even close. But it's still pretty bad, and that goes to show you how dangerous, like all this multiculturalism and different, you know, trying to get different cultures to mix. It doesn't work, you know. It does not help though. The thing is, the countries they come from, the punishment there is more severe. Yeah, like doing something like that. I can imagine if I'm in a place like Africa, and I go up to someone's child and grab him and try to lick him. I am not leaving that area alive. They would probably chop me up. They probably cut my balls off if I did something like that. They probably chop me up for it. Let's be honest. You would not get away with it. In you know, places that are more primitive tend to have more harsh laws for things like that, don't they? Let's be honest. You know, we're very soft on them in this country, though. You know, or at least the government is. When Hay versus Macronelli was announced, many thought Enzo would knock out Hay. He was the favourite. Now, funny looking back with Hay taking him out in 2 years. I think that was because people still had the Carl Thompson fight in their minds with David Hay, and Carl Thompson wasn't as good a fighter as Macronelli. Plus, Hay looked pretty bad in the Mormek fight, even though he got the knockout. He was losing that fight badly, and he got dropped. So you could see why going into that fight, Enzo, who was a bit more experienced and more established, people would have thought he would have won. But obviously, Hay just got to the target first. Hay was so much faster and more explosive, and yeah, he got to the target first and took him out. You know, if you watch Ryan Walsh versus Noakes, he's pretty good. Oh yeah, Noakes fought Ryan Walsh, did he? Yeah, I might check that out. British pissheads are justifying their behaviour overseas in Spain, Ibiza, Majorca, saying they need us to survive. So they're not complaining when migrants do something bad. Normies, yeah, that's classic normie logic. By the way, probably nobody complains more about British pissheads than me. Like, I cannot stand British pissheads. I have to work with them every single shift, and they're some of the most insufferable people on the planet. So trust me, those types of people, yeah, they're just, the world could do without them, honestly. Like alcoholics and you know, just debaucherous people in general are just the types of people the world can do without. As far as I'm concerned, they don't do anybody any good, you know. I wonder why Gayweather picked this. He saw something in the Paul fight. He is defo going to brag about this. Yeah. Yeah, he saw that Mike Tyson can be bought off and have a fake fight. That's what he means, you know. Did you see Dillian White's trainer, Buddy McGirt, saying he didn't watch any of Talma footage beforehand? He said he never bothers to watch footage because he doesn't need. Do you know? I never believe it when fighters say that. Like when fighters say that, and when coaches and that say that about their opponents, I don't believe it. I don't believe it for a second. I think it's just one of them things that fighters say. It's like when actors say they don't watch their own movies. I'm like, yeah, really? You know, I'm pretty sure these fighters watch their opponents. I think they just say that to try and sound like a contrarian, you know. Winky Wright would beat Mayweather. Yes, he would school him. Floyd would duck below the waist, grab the body, legs to win, and throw slap hooks to the back of the head. Yeah, that's pretty much what would happen. We've been losing many fighters this year, haven't we? Foreman, Quart, Bugner, McCallum, and all. Yeah. It's kind of a dark year for boxing. Yeah, there's been a lot of old legends have passed this year. Just seems to be one of them years, doesn't it? For some reason, and a lot of them are like different ages too, which is strange. Yeah, boxing is going to shit. It is. Out here in California, sometimes pedos get dealt with in the California prison system. Prison chomo justice, yeah. It wouldn't surprise me. I reckon those types of people need like extra protection in prison. I tell you one thing, I would not want to be one of those people in prison. Be safe on the doors, no. Yeah, I'm trying. I'm trying to be safe on the doors. Do you know? Weirdly enough, that fight I got into about a month and a half ago now. Nothing like that has happened since. Like I haven't. Nobody's actually punched me since then or tried to bottle me or whatever. But I've restrained a lot of people. I've broke up a lot of fights. I've thrown a lot of people out, and I've had at least I'd say I think about 4 or 5 people since then have told me they're going to stab me. One guy told me he was going to throw me in a van and chop me up. A guy told me he was going to drag me around the corner and like beat the shit out of me and all that. Like I've heard so many threats in the past like month and a half, and I've heard so many people say, "Oh, I make more money than you." And this, that, and the other. You got another one I've heard is you got bullied at school, didn't you? I bet you got bullied at school. That's the kind of thing they say to bouncers. They say, I make more money than you. You got bullied at school. I'm gonna come back and run you over. I'm gonna stick a lock back in your throat. I've given about like 2 or 3 statements to the police. In fact, probably even more than that. Like I've had a lot of situations, but weirdly enough, nobody has assaulted me since that day that happened, weirdly. So I guess I'm just getting more convincing since that. Yeah, I've gotten I kind of let my guard down that one time, but yeah, that's not happening again, you know. Any stories on your quest to become Scotland's hardest bouncer to compete with Hatman? Yeah. Well, it's like again, there's been nothing as interesting as that last time. Nothing as interesting. Again, nobody's hit me or tried to hit me with anything since that one day. But like a couple of weeks back, I was in a Weatherspoons, and there's this old guy who came in, and this guy apparently had been banned for like 4 months. Like he's been barred months ago because he assaulted like multiple members of staff. It was like an old guy in his 60s. Again, another old guy who thinks he's tough, you know, has a few drinks and thinks he's Al Capone or something. But this guy came in and he's arguing with one of the bar staff, and bar staff's telling him to go. One of the other bar staff comes up to me and says, "Listen, this guy's back. I don't know if you know, but he's been barred for months. You need to get him out." And so I went up to the guy, and he's arguing with the bar staff. Right, the bar staff's telling him to go, and this guy completely ignored me. It was like I wasn't even there. He was like pissed out of his mind, and he was so determined for the bar staff to serve him a drink. And he just, I tapped the guy on the shoulder. I'm like, all right, mate, how you doing? And he just, it was like I was a fly buzzing around. He wasn't even concerned with my presence. And he kept talking and talking, like, give me a drink. You know who I am, blah, 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 you know, giving it the big one to the guy behind the bar. And eventually, after about 25 times of me trying to get this guy's attention, he wouldn't even look at me. I just grabbed him. I lost the rag. I was like, all right, that's it, move. I grabbed him and dragged him over to the door and just pushed him out. All right, see you later, bye. And as soon as I pushed him out the door, he came up to me, like got right in my face, like tried to put his face in my face. So I put my hand on his chest and moved him backwards. And I says, can you please back up a bit? Don't invade my personal space. And then he says to me, do you know who I am? Like he gave it the same thing all the old guys say. Do you know who I am? And I'm like, no idea. See you later, buddy. Bye. He says, he says to me, do you want to go around the corner? Like he's like staring right into my eyes. He wouldn't blink. He's like, do you want to go around the corner? I'm like, no, thanks. He asked me a few times. And then he said to me, he's like, she going home tonight. You better watch. You better watch. And I can see him like visibly seething with anger. He's like, I'm gonna throw you in a van and chop you up. He's like, you don't know who you're dealing with. You don't know who I know. And I'm just like, yeah, good for you, buddy. Have a good night, yeah. And then he phoned his mate, and his mate came and picked him up and took him home. Oh, it was funny. That was just a couple of weeks back. That's like one of the. There was a guy. I think a couple of weeks before then, there was this other guy. Basically, the guy was coked out of his mind. He went into the bathroom and came out like, and yeah, you could actually see the powder on his bloody face. That's how like out of his mind this guy was. And he was like waving a glass around, so, and stumbling around. He could barely stand. So I told him to leave because, again, he's visibly intoxicated, and told me to piss off, says I'm not going anywhere, blah, blah, blah. So I try to grab the glass off him, but I'm being very, very careful not to break it in case he cuts himself. And then my colleague, the other bouncer I was on with, just goes up behind him, bear hugs it, like literally just bear hugs the guy, picks him up, carries him out the door, throws him out. So then I went out, and then he turns around and starts saying, yeah, fucking midday, I fucking did, man. He's saying, you effing this, effing that. I'm going to stick a lock back in your throat. That's what he said to my colleague. He said, I'm going to stab you, this, that, and the other. And then my colleague went in, and I'm kind of standing on the door, just like not letting the guy in. And he kept like charging to try and get past me. So every time he did, I just jumped in front of him and pushed him back. I'm like, come on, buddy. You just walk away, just go home. But he's like, I'm not leaving till he dies. Talking about my colleague, like he's a dead man. He was trying to run around the back and break in through the fire exit and everything. And yeah, the bar staff ended up calling the police, and I had to give a statement. There was another guy. It was quite funny. That was that same night, actually. A couple of hours later, another guy came back and accused the bar of stealing his phone. Basically, because what happened is he gave one of the guys behind the bar his phone to charge it, and then he took it back and then left and went to a club. And basically what happened is he went to a club, got high, got pissed, lost his phone, and then came back and accused the bar of stealing his phone. So he was trying to get back in. I told him he couldn't get back in. He's not allowed. And he's screaming and shouting at me at the door, screaming in my face, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. He's banging on the window and then talking about, I'm going to come back, I'm going to stab him in the throat. He stole my phone, blah, blah, blah. And then a few minutes after that, he broke down in tears and started crying for his mum. And I ended up, I'm not even kidding, guys. I ended up putting my arm around the lad, like putting my arm on his shoulder, telling him it's all right, it's going to be okay. And he's like, I want my mom. Like, look, it was so funny, man. Like, I was even trying not to laugh, like while it was happening. So this lad went from telling me he was going to knock me out, that he was going to stick a knife in someone's throat, and this, that, and the other, banging on the windows, banging on the doors, like just raging, to crying for his mum and having to be consoled. Yeah, it was quite funny. That was an interesting night. There's been a few situations like that. Like, again, yeah. I'm not a bouncer. I'm a therapist, or I'm a therapist and a bouncer. I'm helping people work out their issues. That's literally what it's like. It's literally, I make this joke sometimes while I'm working. I'm like, it's like I'm a babysitter or something. Like I'm working in a creche. That's literally what it feels like sometimes. Yeah. The guy thought he was Al Capone. Again, he was wearing a suit. He was wearing like a grey suit. He thought he was a gangster or something. And he told me, he's like, you don't know who I know. He's like, I'll throw you in a, like, you better be careful going home tonight. You better watch. As if he's going to sit there and wait for hours for me to finish my shift, then throw me in a van and chop me up and all that. But I laugh when I hear stuff like that. I find it so funny. Like, it's brilliant. It really is. Crawford should stay retired. 11 years is too long out of boxing. What is Crawford coming back? Surely not. Surely not. I don't think that's happening. Surely not. No, do you think Deontay Wilder can squat 135 pounds for 10 reps given his poor leg genetics? He could probably do it for a few reps. I don't know if he could do 10. Because that's the thing. Like, Wilder, not only is his legs skinny, but his upper body's very big, like by comparison to his legs. So, and I've seen Wilder try to bench press. He's not that strong. He's physically weak for a professional heavyweight fighter, you know. When they use the mental health card, it just reinforces the fact they're not checking anyone who's coming into this country. Exactly, because why would you let people into the country who haven't been vetted, or you know, because you're potentially letting a psychopath into the country without doing any vetting whatsoever. So anything happens, it's the fault of the person who let them in, as far as I'm concerned. You know, it's crazy, and it's not a good excuse anyway. Mental health, as far as I'm concerned, you know. Yo Nordic, yeah, how's it going, Lee? How's it going, man? I'm in Japan training like a pro. Who you picking for, Akhmadaliev or Inoue? Yeah, I was talking about this earlier. I think it's a very, very hard fight for Inoue if he doesn't take it seriously. Like, if he prepares for it the same way he did for the Neary fight, where he's going in there all gun-ho and taking too many risks, he could get dropped and possibly even like upset in that fight. But I do think as long as Inoue has got his head screwed on and he takes his time and does what he's supposed to, he should win the fight. But I'm not at all confident, not even remotely confident, as far as I'm concerned, you know. Yeah. Most genuinely mentally unstable people hurt themselves. Mental health card is an excuse. Because, like, a lot of the time, people who are genuinely, like, absolute psychos, they don't really, they kind of are ostracized by society and they don't really socialize, but then they just explode. Like, they'll go out and shoot a bunch of people, or they'll go out and stab a guy to death. Like they do something really messed up. People like that don't generally go around causing trouble and just being a nuisance, do they? That's just, the people that do that are just dickheads, you know, thugs, as far as I'm concerned, you know. Industry plants, that's possible in this new era of boxing. Yeah, they are. There's that many of them, you know. And Canelo, Crawford are good examples. Listening to a street preacher while I'm eating some chicken poppers. Oh, yeah. I like chicken poppers. I love them. And yeah, street preachers, again, like I've said many times, those guys have got balls of steel. I've got so much respect for those guys. I wish I had even a shred of the courage that those guys have, you know. I got money on Canelo by KO. Boxing media is hyping up Crawford too much, too suspicious. Yeah, I wouldn't bet on a KO for this fight personally, because I think it's got a boring decision written all over it. Just one of them for me. Ibiza, Mallorca experiencing African migration and they're being housed for free. Are they really? I didn't know that. I didn't know what was happening over there. Like, those are like mostly holiday places, aren't they? Aren't you excited for Canelo's third or fourth opponent in his last 6 fights from a lower weight class? Nah. But, you know, for some reason, I'm not. For some reason. Making him sound like a supervillain. Also, go around the corner and do what? Yeah, that's what I'm saying to the guy. I'm like, no thanks. I don't want to go around the corner with you. That's kind of gay, actually. And you know, you're twice my age, literally. So, you know, it wouldn't work out between us, you know. Oh, crazy, man. Don't you just love it, though? Again, I know you've done security. Like, don't you love it when you get an old guy, a guy who's 60 years old, who thinks it's still the 1980s and thinks he's still a tough guy? He's had a few drinks in him. And again, he thinks he's Al Capone. He thinks he's Don Corleone or something. And he's gonna have you whacked and that. Like, he thinks that he's important and stuff. I actually had one old guy who moaned at me because my shirt hadn't been ironed. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, he actually went to the bar staff and complained because my shirt wasn't ironed. And I'm like, this guy thinks he's that important, doesn't he? Like, oh, that's funny, isn't it? This country been a joke. Have you seen the vid of Billy Joe Saunders being arrested? He's telling the police to shag their mum. No, I've not seen that. Why? What was he arrested for? Like, what was he arrested for? I didn't hear about that. Old guy must have been so embarrassed of himself if he had any respect for himself. Mate, see if I behaved like that in any situation, particularly if I behaved like that towards somebody younger than me, somebody half my age, I would be, I couldn't show my face in public again. I would be mortified. I would be so embarrassed that I acted so immaturely that I would not be able to show my face in public again. But there's something about that generation of men in this country. It's a generation of man children. It's a generation of like 60-year-old adolescents. That's what it's like. It's so embarrassing. Like, I get secondhand embarrassment thinking about it. I honestly do, you know? Yep, cocaine and booze turns people like, mate, cocaine and booze, it's like, I'll tell you exactly what it causes. It causes acute behavioral disorder, if you know what that is. You know, when somebody is so high, is so off their face on drugs, that it's like they're demon possessed. Like, you're trying to restrain a person. It's like, you know, in mental homes, when you'll see like 5 guys trying to restrain one woman, and it's because the woman is just manic and she's using every ounce of her strength with no inhibition. That's what it's like trying to restrain a guy who's on drugs, like who's strung out on cocaine. It's like it makes them so much stronger, but so much more manic. And that's why you got to be really careful, because they would have no inhibition whatsoever in stabbing you to death or glassing you or something like that, or hurting themselves or hurting someone else. Like, it's such a dangerous, like that's why people just shouldn't do drugs. And I've got no problem with like harsher sentence for drug dealers in this country. Drug dealers are a blight on this country. They really are, especially with the kind of job I have. It makes my job so much harder, you know. Like, I often have to kick like large groups of people out for doing drugs in the toilets and stuff like that. And it's and again, when the people have depending on how far along they are on how much they've taken, it is a nightmare, because you cannot, like, if you're dealing with someone who's got acute behavioral disorder and who's high on drugs, you cannot have a conversation with them. You cannot reason with them. Like, it's like talking to a brick wall. You just cannot do it. So you just got to be very, very like careful when you're dealing with them, you know. It's that kind of situation. You know, piss heads are funny. Yeah, they're funny until it gets violent. I'll tell you that, you know. Nordic, I realized from your bouncer stories that the best martial art from these situations is wrestling and jiu-jitsu. Grabbing the guy and learning a bunch of chokes is the way to go. I agree. Like, see if you're a doorman, absolutely 100% learn jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is perfect for working doors. It's perfect. You know, there's a lot of people who do like Wing Chun and Aikido and stuff like that, because, you know, it's the whole idea of like redirecting aggression. But like, I think jiu-jitsu is perfect, because if you need to grab a person's arm and put them in a secure hold and things like that, if you're a skilled like jiu-jitsu practitioner, you're gonna have a much easier time. And of course, it helps to be like big and strong. So obviously, lift weights and train. You know, make yourself as strong as possible. You know. Yeah, a lot of police are weak nowadays. No doubt about it. No doubt. Yeah. No, they should have gave him Iron Brew. Yeah, if I gave the guy Iron Brew, maybe he'd have sobered up a bit. That'd help him with his hangover for sure. Where are you from? I'm from Glasgow, Scotland. But I've lived all over the country, basically. And I work all over Scotland as well. Like, I work all over the place. So I commute quite a lot for my job now, you know. If Till and Froch fight, imagine if Froch gets choked out. Yeah. Oh, is he going to fight Darren Till in MMA? That'd be interesting. Obviously, in the boxing ring, Till would have no chance, but in MMA, he'd probably win easily, I think, you know. Darren Till wants Misfits fight with Froch. Froch acting interested. I don't think it'll happen, but it'll be interesting. Yeah, he's called out by Darren Till. Darren Till would win if it's he would win, in my opinion, if it's an MMA fight. He wouldn't win in a boxing match, but he'd win in an MMA fight, no doubt. I saw the Canelo Crawford face off. Does Canelo's shoulder look smaller? No. Crawford does look jacked. Crawford is because Crawford hasn't been cutting weight for the fight, so he's allowed himself to get nice and juicy for the fight, I guess. And he actually does look a bit bigger. He definitely looks more defined, if that makes sense. I'll be back in a minute. I'm just going to the bathroom. All right, let me just pour my iron brew, then I'll get back to these comments. I'm sitting at a bit of an awkward angle here. Let me pull this bloody thing forward a little bit. Till has been on a good run in Misfits. Who was it he beat recently? I did see. I think I saw Triple B talking about Darren Till beating somebody. I forgot who it was though. Inoue's had tons of big sparring partners for this fight. He's taking it really seriously. Well, that's good to hear, and that tells me that he knows what we know. You know, he knows that MJ is a serious opponent. He's not just going to go in there and walk through him, you know, like he's used to doing with some of them. Yeah, there's a lot of Africans preaching in the street too. I got a lot of respect for them. You know, Wilder just has to show gym. Sorry, what am I saying? Wilder just has show or gym muscles. You mentioned unironically, your grandma's probably stronger. Yeah, probably. Like you see that video of Deontay Wilder swinging that sledgehammer. It wasn't even a big sledgehammer. It wasn't even a heavy sledgehammer. And he was struggling. Like, he was struggling to actually swing it. Like, I remember, like, my mum's a very small woman. She's like, what, she's like 4'10", or something like that. She's very small. Right? She's a small woman. And she's like nearly 60, right? I remember my mum had this massive sledgehammer. It was like my granddad's sledgehammer that he used to use to like break things up in the backyard, in the back garden. And this thing was massive, right? Really heavy sledgehammer. And she used to use it to break up wood in the back garden. Like she would break it up with like to put it into a bonfire, right? And she would like, you'd see her swinging this big massive sledgehammer. That sledgehammer is like several times heavier than the hammer that Deontay Wilder uses, several times heavier, or than that sledgehammer that Wilder had in that video. Because I've seen those sledgehammers before. It's just a basic one, right? She was able to swing it better than him. Like my mother, my like 60-odd-year-old mother looked stronger than Deontay Wilder. I'm not even joking. Like Deontay Wilder, his physical strength is so poor for a heavyweight boxer. It's shocking. Like, again, that video of him bench pressing, and it's like the squatters or the spotters are doing quite a bit of the work, and he can barely get the weight up for one rep, like with terrible form. Like, Wilder is so like, I don't even know what it is, because it's not like he's a small guy or anything. Like, Wilder weighs well over 200 pounds, and he's a reasonably fit guy. He just seems to lack strength genetically, you know? He's just one of these guys who isn't that physically compact. And you see him when he's in the ring with Fury. Fury was just ragdolling him, throwing him around that ring with ease and not even really trying that hard. So yeah, that was a weird situation, I think. That's me got my drink poured. Where was I? I'm losing my place. Great sparring and hard training. Yeah, it's good to hear. Surprised the old boy didn't say he knew the Cray twins. Yeah, yeah. If I was in London, he probably would have said that. Or if I was like just anywhere in like the south or whatever, like he probably would have said that. But like what I sometimes hear is like when I throw an old guy out, he'll tell me, I know, he'll mention some name of someone I've never heard of, like some supposed local gangster. He'll be like, I've talked about this on my gaming channel. Like, so one of these guys will say, I know Big Davy so and so from wherever, so you better watch. He's my pal. And I'm like, am I supposed to know who that is? Like, but yeah, you hear things like that quite a lot. It's funny, you know. They'll mention some name and then look at you as if I'm going to be like, all right, well, in that case, you can do whatever you want, you know. It's funny the things you hear, the threats and all that. It's brilliant. Again, these guys all think they're gangsters, and they think because they're 60 years old and they're wearing a suit that makes them a gangster, you know. So Billy Joe's going to jail potentially. So what is it he's actually done though? Is this guy Pigeon? Yeah, I could see Pigeon going out on the piss and acting like that. I genuinely could. All dogs are attacking hares for a slow kill. A gypsy, yeah. Gypsies do that, don't they? They hunt hares with dogs. That's like a weird cultural thing. It's like that scene in Snatch. They did it. Remember? So is that what he's getting arrested for? That's interesting. The police should have said, "I send Canelo to deal with you as punishment." Yeah. Send Canelo to deal with the guy. Imagine. Got my iron brew. I'm sure you guys wanted to see that. I wonder what will happen once Ibiza gets full of migrants. Well, yeah, according to you guys, it's getting there, isn't it? I've never been to Ibiza, so I don't really know much about it. All I know about it is that it's a place where like British pissheads go to be pissheads and to, you know, act like dickheads. You know, you're coming back to England. I'll probably be visiting England maybe sometime soon. I'm actually going to Poland in January. My missus wants to go to Poland, so she's booked a little week holiday there. So yeah, we'll see what happens then. Well, that place is like I've never been to Poland before, so that'll be quite fun. And she also wants to go to America sometime as well. But again, this is all like stuff I've got to find the time for and plan holidays and whatnot. The last time I went to England was I think it was December there. I went to my mate's house and we watched the Usyk Fury 2 fight. That was the last time I was in England. So I've not actually been this year. Hopefully I can go there before the end of the year and we'll figure something out, you know. Police fitness standards should be same as the army. Yeah, absolutely. Like police in this country need to be athletic. They need to be fit. They need to be strong, and they need to be like trained in martial arts, as well as like use of weapons and stuff like that. Because this country is getting so bad, and again with all the drug use and with all the like mass immigration and with all the, you know, pisshead behavior and you know, light sentences for criminals and all that. So many more police are going to get attacked. Like, for example, in America, look at the amount of police. Again, look, I don't know if you were listening earlier. I was talking about that body cam footage that I watch, and it brought me to tears. Like that police officer who was just doing a little check because there was somebody loitering at a property, and he just says hi to the guy, and he's like, "Are you the guy that called?" And then the guy just pulls out a kitchen knife and stabbed him to death for no reason. The guy did nothing, like the cop did nothing wrong. He just asked the guy, "Are you the guy that called?" Stabbed him to death for no reason. Like police need to be, and especially in this country where like I know like you have armed response, but most police in this country who you come across are not armed. They're not carrying a weapon. So You know, they don't have guns to defend themselves. Like, I think at best they'll have like a stab-proof vest or something. Like, they need to be able to run to catch a perpetrator and save people's lives. They need to be strong. They need to be trained how to defend themselves, and they need to have standards. Like, they need to all be of a particular standard to do the job. You know. So yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I meant in boxing, Till forgets boxing, just beats up Froch MMA style. Yeah, in an MMA fight, he would win, no doubt about it. Yeah, fitness and intelligence standard. There probably should be an IQ test for the police as well, but the problem with that is there'll just be a lot less police. A lot less police, you know? No, why are you gay? Yeah, I remember that. That was a funny interview. It's funny how they attack white preacher but never do it to the African. That's probably because the African preacher would kick their asses. Like white preachers tend to like turn the other cheek and stuff like that, but the African ones are probably just machete you or something. Like, I'd imagine. You can tell Wilder hasn't held a sledgehammer or axe. You don't need to be that great deal of strength to use one. Tool does the work. Technique. Yeah, exactly. It's you get used to using it. And you know you have the technique to build the momentum. You know, you just swing it behind you and then swing it over your head, and obviously you control it as it goes down. But you don't need to be like a super strong man to do it. But Deontay Wilder didn't seem to know how to even swing like a regular sledgehammer, just a normal one. You know, like I could have swung that about when I was like 13 and not had any problems. You know, people in the YTBC have seen Wilder say, the guy is huge. Yeah, he is a very big guy, but he's a top heavy guy. Like, he's got skinny legs and a big upper body, you know. Wilder's mentality is actually quite interesting. He shows in videos when he's in the gym, he shows decent technique when it comes to jabs or the punches. In the ring, he looks like an amateur. Yeah, it's like he forgets everything as soon as the bell goes and he has to fight, and he turns into a windmill all of a sudden, you know. He's still doing boxing training. I am, but I'm a little bit sparing with it over the past couple of weeks because I've had like a weird work schedule. So I've been kind of commuting around a lot, and I've not had the time. But I'm going to go to the boxing gym on Wednesday this week, and I'm going to start training again. So yeah, I'm going to sort my routine out and whatnot and get back to it because I need to. Wilder's one of these guys that generally believes his own crap to the extreme. He said in an interview, and he gets in the ring, he becomes the bronze bomber, and he's almost in a possessed state. Yeah, where he's talking to Fury, he's like, it's like an ancestral spirit. I just answer your question. You ain't talking to Deontay Wilder. You talking to the bronze bomber. And I will baptize you. I will. We will rise again. We will regain the title. I am strong. I am a king. I am a king that will never give up. Like Deontay Wilder's one of these guys. Could you imagine hanging around that guy for more than 5 minutes? Like, you would lose so many brain cells listening to him try to string a sentence together, wouldn't you? It's like listening to Chris Chan or something. That's what it's like, you know. Imagine being stuck in a lift with that guy. That'd be awful, wouldn't it? British pissheads go there to escape their trash lives. Yeah. They go from, you know, the Jeremy Kyle show, like levels of like depravity, to going on holiday to just like ruin everybody else's night, basically, you know. Crawford is the most overrated boxer right now. He's definitely one of them. Apparently Usyk Parker never happened because fight won't sell. Well, I think that fight would sell personally. You know, I mean, Usyk's become a worldwide star now, and you know, Parker's got a decent following in New Zealand, so and he's well known in the UK now, isn't he? So I don't see why not. Oh yeah, no women policing like outside. Yeah, women policing, but like I think women police belong in the dispatch, and you know you can send them outside in regards to like, you know, calming people down and maybe interrogating them and stuff like that. I don't believe women police should be on the front line because I've seen how dangerous it is out there, and I've seen how like just how unpredictable things can be, and like there's no way a woman police officer could handle a lot of the stuff that those guys have to deal with. So I agree they shouldn't be on the front line, you know. Most police in this country are fat, out of shape, middle class idiots consumed by modernity. There are very few working class officers who work the areas where they grew up. Yeah, I agree. That's true. And that's the thing. A lot of police get moved to areas away from where they live so that they don't get, so that people don't follow them home and stuff like that. A lot of bouncers do that too. But like the situation, what you have with police, I find is, like you say, a lot of them work in communities that they're not too familiar with, and they don't really know how to deal with the locals, basically, and again, a lot of them just think that they're still in that bubble, they're still trapped in that mentality of where they come from, and they don't really know how things are done on the streets, and how to deal with people. And like you say, a lot of them are out of shape and all that. They should have much better fitness standards, Like, if you're a police officer, you have to be in shape. You cannot be a out of shape slob. You can't be sitting about eating donuts. You have to be a fit, active guy who's on active duty. Yeah, yeah, it does make me sad. A lot of churches these days look empty. Then again, like, see up in like Inverclyde and places like that, there's actually some, believe it or not, some thriving church communities, and there's a church round here I go to sometimes, which is beautiful. Also, see, when I go to Edinburgh, there's still a lot of churchgoers and stuff like that. So it's still around. It's not what it used to be, but it's still around. There's still a lot of believers in this country, and I'm thankful for that. I'm losing my place here. Police years back were all ex-army. Current ones out of shape and not streetwise. Yeah, and again, a lot of them are just too soft now. I reckon they're too soft with criminals. Again, again, when I'm working the doors, I've seen guys literally threaten to murder innocent people, and then the police have a word with them and let them go that same night. I'm like, look, if I was a police officer and I'm detaining a person who's made threats of murder, I'm throwing him in the cells and I'm making sure he doesn't get out again that night. I'm not taking him home. It's a lot of them are just too soft, in my opinion, and they can't, like, they just can't deal with they can't deal with criminals. They're not tough enough for it, mentally or physically. Yeah, yeah. Police these days are the degree types, because again, like all things, there's a lot of people who come out of college and get given positions that they're not really qualified for. Jobs that they might have the certification for it. Like, for example, you can get an SIA license easily. Like that's the license I have, right? You can get that easily, no matter who you are, right? But that doesn't qualify you to be able to work as a doorman, because to work as a doorman, you've got to have certain things about you to be able to handle the job. Not everybody like, you could have the piece of paper to say that you can do the job. That doesn't mean you can do the job. It doesn't mean you're competent. And it's the same with the police, as far as I'm concerned. Human fatigue is real when it comes to dealing with people on a daily basis. You just want inner peace when you enter your home. Yeah, exactly. And another thing you learn, like, with stuff like that, is you learn to not take it personal and be like, look, it's a job. You're going to deal with dickheads, you're going to deal with scumbags, but it's never personal. If you start taking it personal, you're just going to destroy your mental health, basically. That's why you need to be more professional. Wilder's boxing's first lol cow. Yeah, like I was saying, it's like listening to Chris Chan or one of these like crazy people who just rambles a bunch of nonsense, like self-delusion. Like, Wilder is unbelievably delusional. Was the Billy Joe Canelo stoppage real, in your opinion? Was the broken orbital bone fake? I think it was fake. And I think it was Billy Joe just had a black eye, and then he quit on his stool, like he said he was gonna. He said he was gonna pick me money up and go home. That was his prediction for the fight. He basically, he basically just admitted he wasn't coming to win. No, I don't think Canelo hits too hard. I don't think Canelo hits that hard at all. Like, he probably has like welterweight standard power. I think Canelo must have done something that ruined Billy Joe. Yeah, gave him a black eye, and that was it. From the uppercut that he leaned into. Clarissa Shields would be a woman police officer without boxing. Women police just want power over men. Oh yeah, a lot of them are definitely on a power trip. No doubt about that. A lot of them love their job way too much. But see when a man does something like puts their hands on them, it conveniently it's the men police that deal with all that, innit? And it's the men police who put themselves on the line when it all comes down to it, you know. Yeah, women get in the way in violent conflict situations. Absolutely, mate. Again, I've been in so many situations where women just made it worse. Like not always, but more often than not. See, when there's a violent altercation and women try to get involved, they just make it worse. They trip everybody over. They prevent real justice from being enacted. They prevent you from being able to accurately control a situation or defend yourself. And I think in situations like that, like women should just take a step back and not get involved. Just do not get involved. That's my advice to them, you know. I understand why Parker versus Wardley has been made. If Parker will fight Usyk, maybe Turkey wants Parker to prove himself against a guy he should be, although robbed of a title shot. Completion was poor. Well, I mean, Parker has proved himself time and time again, in my opinion. I mean, he's beaten several world-ranked contenders in the past couple of years alone. And that's not to say... that's to say nothing of the fact he's already been a world champion, and he already beat Andy Ruiz and you know, Carlos Takam and guys like that, you know, who were top contenders back then, you know, back before he won the title. So, you know, Joseph Parker's a guy who's been around. He's paid his dues, in my opinion, and he should get the fight. In my opinion, he should get the Usyk fight. He's earned it more than any other heavyweight contender, in my opinion. You know, Bacoli against Parker was a lamb being slaughtered. Parker looking better, but I think people admit to him would want him to have a proper win, good win over a decent guy coming into his prime. Dubois pull out, still sketchy now. Yeah, well, I think Dubois bottled it from the Parker fight. I don't think he wanted it. I think he realized Parker was training really hard and was coming to win, and he bottled it. I figured he would just take the Usyk fight instead. It's more money and you know, a less consequential loss, I guess, because he's already lost to that guy. You know. Apparently, Usyk is faking an injury to ensure a third Fury fight, so Parker's not getting the Usyk match. Do you guys really think that will happen, though? Do you really think Fury will get another shot at Usyk? I don't think that boxing will have it. I think it's just there's so little demand for that fight. I can't see it being finalized. I really can't. Because the first two fights were relatively conclusive. Fury did everything he could the first time, basically bottled it the second time. Why would anyone think it's going to be any different a third time? Why would anyone want to see it? Plus, Fury's been looking out of shape lately, so I think it'll be a while before we see him in the ring again, you know? So, yeah, I can't see it happening personally. Thanks for pointing out Canelo has a fake career. Yeah, no problem. It's been obvious to me for the past, 10 years nearly. Because again, these guys just aren't even trying. They're missing on purpose. That's how it is. Yeah, Parker should have his shot, but Turkey wants Usyk Fury again. I don't know why Turkey would want that. Like, what does Turkey have against Parker getting that fight? How does it affect him at all? I don't understand it. I don't understand how either result of that fight would hinder Turkey and his business plans. I don't understand it. Police standards are rock bottom. I outrun a Fed who should have nicked me just after I smoked. Yeah, you ran away. But yeah, again, police should be able to catch these guys. They should, but they're just not. You know, they're not trained lawmen. Basically, they're just like Del was saying. They're basically, guys who have degrees and get the job based on what's on paper rather than what they're actually good at. You know. How old were you when you started boxing? I was 15 when I started boxing. I think I was 13, 14 when I started watching it, though. So it was a long, long time ago because I'm 31 now, so I'm getting on a bit. Police officers should learn MMA. They should know when to strike and when to grapple, depending on the situation. I agree, absolutely. Absolutely. Again, jiu-jitsu, like I was saying, is very good for law enforcement. Because again, a big part of the job is restraining people. So you need to know how to do it safely and covering all bases so that the opponent doesn't escape. That's the kind of thing you learn in jiu-jitsu. You roll around on the mat and learn how to manipulate joints and control an opponent, things like that. One of my ultra casual friends once said something. I wanted Mayweather to fight Fury. His brain Mayweather was way bigger, but honestly, it's going that way at this point. Yeah, Mayweather versus Fury. They're probably the only two fighters he knows. It's like when people say, "Oh, Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali," like they've never heard of any other fighters, so they just mention those two, and like who would win? That's like super casual, isn't it? Is that Zhang, the Chinese, is my favorite heavyweight. Strong as an ox. Yeah, he's strong. He's a massive puncher, but not particularly skilled or fit. Terrible stamina, The incident where a woman was massively bleeding, the men were expected to deal with it. Yeah, they always are. You see, like even if you watch a lot of the body cam footage, like women get taken out of the game immediately, and it's the men who clear everything up. It's the men who deal with the dangerous things, Oh, don't get me wrong, Wilder, Zhang, and Bakoli are good wins. It's a good legacy fight for Usyk, no doubt. But while Usyk is recovering from injury, Parker will get another chance to prove himself. I think that's what's happening. Yeah, I don't know how Parker could prove himself any more than he already has, though. Fury face down, ass up outside the pub after Nordic threw him out the pub. Yeah, I throw his big ass out the pub. You'd need to get me a step ladder though, because he's so much bigger than me. Like Fury's like more than a foot taller than me, so it would be a difficult. He'd be a difficult guy to manhandle, but I'd still give it a go. I'd still give it a go. I tell you. Parker Wardley, some interim fight. Winner becomes WBO champ. Yeah, because Parker's already the interim champion, isn't he? So if Usyk doesn't fight Parker, that fight doesn't get made. He'll get made the champ if he wins, So I suppose I've got no problem with it. He's not like losing out on a title shot in that sense because he's got a claim to the title. So he might get the title without the title shot, Nordic, why are you picking Crawford when he doesn't have defense anymore? Because the fight ain't real. Because the fight's obviously some sort of manufactured sparring session. So I'm saying it could go either way. It just depends on who the establishment and the powers that be involved want to win. It's entirely up to them, I'm starting to become very jaded with Turkey at this point. Yeah, same. Turkey is just, again, he's starting to overstay his welcome in boxing and overestimating his own importance, I think. He seems to think he owns boxing. It's like his own plaything. Just because he's got all that money and he's investing in these fights doesn't mean he owns the sport and can tell us all what to think and what fights we want and all that. That's not how it works, buddy. The guy needs to know his place, as far as I'm concerned. As far as I'm concerned, he's just another promoter. He doesn't own the sport and he shouldn't be allowed to monopolize it, If Usyk Fury 3 is made, I'm not watching it. Parker or Cabello next, that's it. Or Wardley if he beats Parker. Those are the only ones right now. Logically, those are the only three guys that deserve a shot. Anyone else can get in line as far as I'm concerned. And I think Parker has earned the shot more than anybody, What's going on, Nordic? Yeah, how's it going, man? How's everything? Well, yeah, it's all good. There really wasn't much demand for Canelo, but here we are 5 days from now. I wouldn't put a pass on a third Usyk Fury match. Yeah, we've been talking about that. It's I don't think it'll happen personally. I don't think there's anywhere near enough demand to justify that fight. I don't think Fury will get it. I don't think Turkey has that much power to where he'll be able to make that fight happen. I could be wrong. I don't think so because nobody wants it. It's not just Turkey. Blame also relies on Usyk. He doesn't want to have tough fights anymore. He's nearly 40, yeah. Again, Usyk's paid his dues to the sport. I don't think we can really ask more from him. But if he's going to keep fighting, he's got to fight consequential opponents and guys who deserve a shot. And Parker deserves the shot more than any other contender right now, you know? So, yeah, that's all I've got to say about that, to be honest. If Parker's boring, then watch Shakur. Turkey probably as biased against Parker. He ruined his plans for a Wilder AJ bout, and he probably thought he would ruin Dubois as well. Let's be honest. Again, I don't find Parker boring. I've never found him boring. Like sometimes he can be boring, but when he's in a consequential fight where he's got an opponent who forces a performance out of him, then he's all right. Yeah, I think he's entertaining, and he's definitely. Whether or not you personally find him entertaining, he's the guy who's the interim champion. He's the mandatory. He's the guy who's, he's the guy who's worked hard and beaten who he's had to beat to get into that position. You know, he's paid his dues and he's owed the title shot. You know. Apologies, the way I'm writing seems confusing. I type fast. YouTube corrects me for some reason. No, it's all right. It's all good. I can see what you're saying. I just when there's a autocorrect, I've got to double check it to make sure. But that's fine. I don't mind. It's all good. I see what you're saying. I already asked this, but I scored the first Usyk fight 9-2 with round 4 even. I only gave Fury round 5 and 6. Thoughts on this being realistic? And your score? I had it 8-4 for Fury. Sorry, for Usyk. The first time I watched it. I think the second time I watched it, I had it 9-3 for Usyk. I forget exactly what rounds I gave Fury. It might have been rounds 4, 5, and 6. And I think when I first watched it, I also gave him 7. I might have rethought that when I watched it again. It's been a while since I watched it, but I know when I first watched the fight, I had the first 3 rounds to Usyk. I had 4, 5, and 6 and 7 to Fury. And then I had 8-12 all for Usyk, with obviously the knockdown in round 9. So a pretty clear 8-4 with a knockdown for Usyk. That's how I scored it first time. But a couple of those rounds could easily have gone to Usyk. A couple of them could have. No doubt about it. In terms of gains, do you believe in semen retention as an alternative for TRT? No, I think that's like pseudo-scientific nonsense. I don't think it makes a difference. I honestly don't. Or if it does, it's so like minute a difference that it's not even worth thinking about, in my opinion, you know? That's just my opinion. Other people know better than me, but yeah, that's how I see it. Nordic, if Canelo talks shit to you, are you throwing him out of the club? Oh, yeah. Canelo, like, I'm about the same size as Canelo. I'd throw him out easily. Easily, I'd throw Canelo out, but Fury would be too big for me. Far too big, you know? But I'd give it a go anyway. I'd try. You know how I am, Este? I'm Canelo. Like, yeah, see you later, bye. Grab him by his collar and throw him out. Arse and neck him out the door, you know? If Fury refused to leave, what would you do? I'd probably just like call for backup. I'd probably like radio for backup. Put my hand on his arm, like, all right, come on, buddy, let's go. You know, don't you touch me. You know I am. I'm Tyson Fury. And then I'd probably try to like wrestle him out, and then he'd probably kick my ass. But I'd give it a good go. And if I get like a team of guys with me, we'll all jump him and kick his head in and throw him out, you know. If there's like a team of doormen, we'd get him out. But if it was me myself, I wouldn't have a chance. Let's be honest. You know, I think Wardley should some sort of WBA champion interim title. Yeah, I think he have the interim title. I think he did. So that could be two interim titles, like a unification of 2 interim titles. That'd be quite interesting. So the winner could potentially get 2 belts very quickly. You know, just elevated to him. You know, Nordic, would you be surprised? There's poverty in Saudi Arabia, spending millions on entertainment, sport, and music festivals. Well, yeah, it's again, it's like an oligarchy, isn't it? Or again, you got the royals and the people on the top are rich, but the people below them are very poor. You know, that's just how countries like that are. You know, it doesn't surprise me one bit. How long after starting did you first spar in the US sparring culture, rookie spar, the first time they go in? I think it must have been about like a week or a couple of weeks before I started sparring. It wasn't long. Me and my mate used to spar quite a lot when we were younger, you know. People say that Parker was boring because of the AJ fight where Parker wasn't allowed to do anything. Yeah, every time he got inside, he just he was getting warned by that referee. He wasn't allowed to do nothing, you know. And AJ was boring in that fight too, you know. What do you think of Italma? Well, look, he looks very good, but he still hasn't fought anybody. And that Dillian White fight was a fix, in my opinion. Just a total rigged fight, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, I agree. Parker would knock out AJ if they fought now. Because AJ's shot now and Parker's pretty much in his prime, you know. Nigel Benn versus Julian Jackson. Hagler versus Barkley. Fury versus Vitali. I think Ben would probably put a lot of pressure on Julian Jackson, but he'd probably get knocked out. He'd probably walk into some shots and get himself knocked out. Hagler probably beat Barkley on points. Just outwork him all night. Fury versus Vitali, I go with Vitali on points, but again, a very, very competitive fight. Vitali's a little bit more athletic, a little bit more explosive. I think he'd win on points. Have you had an amateur fight? No, I've never had an amateur fight. I've had many like gym wars and hard spars, but I've never had an amateur fight. No. I reckon if Usyk didn't get that 10-8, they would have given it to Fury based on the scorecards. Do you know what? I think the way the scorecards worked out, that is what would have happened, I think. Because didn't he get it by like 1 point on a couple of the scores or something? I don't know. So yeah, he was lucky he got the 10-8. He genuinely was, you know. Not sure why they're not promoting Zhang more and making a fight in China or something. It would bring millions. I'd make Zhang versus Pulev. Zhang gets the WBA title easily. Yeah, you'd think they would have done more with Zhang to try and get the Chinese market, because China's got a big economy, a big market. You know, make China economy strong. Like they could have done that, but no, they didn't bother to for some reason. Mentioning Ben, I read once on a Gerald McClellan highlight reel, someone called McClellan the greatest, lol. Dude got hit clean a lot of times. Jackson caused mental damage in the first bout. Yeah, McClellan after the Jackson fight, I think, said that he had a headache. I mean, he probably did. Like maybe that was what led to him getting brain damage after the Ben fight. Maybe it was the Ben fight just kind of finished him off. You never know. Could have been the case. Usyk actually outlanded Fury in round 4 by several punches. And Fury held the rope while throwing a punch, which is illegal and shouldn't count. So many people gave Fury round 3 and 12, which I don't understand. Yeah, I didn't give him round 12. I thought Usyk clearly won round 12. I gave him round 3. Sorry, not round 3. I gave Usyk round 3. I gave Fury the first time I watched it, like I said, round 4, 5, and 6. Every other round I gave to Usyk, including round 12. I thought Usyk clearly won round 12. I did. I wouldn't want to take a McClellan body shot, though. No, I don't think anyone would. That guy could punch. He could. Pulev's still floating around with the WBA regular title. Again, not sure. Yeah. Can I just explain that situation here? You know, I had a video planned where I was going to talk about that because see the WBA title, like we call it the regular title. That's what we call it. Technically, if we're just going to, and I know this will sound pretentious, technically there's no such thing as a regular title. That title is the WBA world title. And the other title that we're thinking of, which we call the super title, is basically a distinction. Now, all the sanctioning bodies, with the exception of the IBF, have that exact same distinction. They just word it differently. And they go about it differently. So how it's supposed to work in theory, and I've done quite a bit of research on this. And look, that WBA situation, the multiple belt situation, it's not a new thing. People are acting like it's a new thing. And the reason they're acting like it's a new thing is because of the situation at heavyweight. You know, because you had the Manuel Charr situation where he had that belt for years without fighting, and fights kept getting cancelled, and there were so many lawsuits and failed drug tests and whatnot. That's what's kind of muddied the waters, and it's brought a lot of negative attention on the WBA. But the situation is, as far as any of us have been alive and any of us have been watching boxing, the WBA has always had the world title and the super title, which again is a distinction, right? The super title is an upgrade, right? So if you look at how it works with the WBC, they've tried to do this many times over the years, and they keep changing it and wording it differently because it doesn't work out, right? The WBC have the world title, right? And then when they want somebody else to get a title, what they'll do is they will elevate the champion to some other distinction. Like, so they made Sergio Martinez the diamond champion. They made Canelo the franchise champion, and Lomachenko and stuff like that. They've always got a different title, the super duper ultra mega title, whatever you call it, right? And the WBA were doing that years earlier. The WBO do it as well, but it's a little bit different. I'll explain that. So the idea with the WBA, this is the idea behind it. And I'm not saying that this was the true intention. And I'm not saying that this is how it works in practice, but this is how it works in theory. The idea is when you have the WBA title and you're a world champion, when you get to a certain distinction in your career, so when you become a big name, once you've had several defenses of the title and you've established yourself as the man to beat in the division, so when you become what's called a super champion, right? Because the idea is you could win a title and lose it in your very next fight, or you could win a title and then retire, never fight again, never defend the title. But you establish yourself as champion. It's kind of like winning, for example, the British title outright. You defend it 3 times, you get to keep the belt, right? You establish yourself as champion. The WBA, or in this case, the sanctioning body, will make it so that you don't have to follow through with the usual obligations that a champion, a quote-unquote regular champion, will have to deal with. So you won't have to fight a mandatory every 6 months. You won't have to constantly constantly involve yourself in that conference and do all the mundane stuff that a regular champion has to do, because you're at the stage of your career where you're a super champion now. You're an established man to beat in the division. So you're going to be going for legacy fights, right? You're going to be going for unifications. You're going to be going for big consequential paydays and things that a regular WBA title holder wouldn't be able to do due to mandatory obligations and things of that nature. So the idea behind being a super champion is that's what you're given. It's a privilege that you've earned to now not have to deal with all that stuff. So somebody else can become the champion. Let's say there's an interim champion, right? Which is basically just the next guy in line. If he doesn't get his shot, he'll get given the belt immediately, right? Without fighting for it. That guy is now the champion. He's the world, like there's no such thing as a regular champion. That guy is the world champion, and he now has to deal with the mandatories and all the stuff that requires him to build up his name and become a super champion. And once he reaches that distinction, the idea is he now has to fight you. He will become your mandatory. He gets to fight for that super championship distinction, right? That's how it works. The WBA have always had this. They've had this for many, many years. And the WBO, for example, their version of it, and they've had it for almost as long. When you defend the title a certain amount of times and again become a super champion, right? When you become a champion with a certain distinction, you then have certain privileges. Now they don't have multiple titles. They don't make a quote unquote regular champion and now there's 2 different titles. No. What the WBO does is they make it so that now you can move up in weight and you will immediately become mandatory for the champion in that division. That's essentially what comes. It's one of the perks and privileges that comes with being a super champion, right? That's the difference between being a super champion and being a champion, right? That's what it's supposed to mean. The WBA have always had that, okay? If you look at back in like the early 2000s, and when people say things like, they say, oh, he's not a real world champion. Like they'll say, Kubrat Pulev isn't a real world champion because he has the regular title. That's what people will say, right? Nobody was saying that about Anthony Mundine when he won the quote unquote regular title. Nobody was saying that about Carl Froch when he won the quote unquote regular title. Nobody was saying that about Mikhail Kessler. Like nobody was saying that about all these guys from past decades who had that WBA title. Nobody was calling these guys regular champions, and nobody was calling these guys fake champions and saying that's not a real world title, this, that, and the other. Nobody was saying that. The idea of the regular championship, the regular title being a problem and being something that isn't worth or that isn't legitimate, that's a relatively modern idea. And it's been exacerbated by the heavyweight situation, which, let's be honest, is a disaster. Like that situation at heavyweight where you have all these guys like Manuel Charr holding the belt for years, losing the belt, then winning it back over an email and a lawsuit, stuff like that. It's really damaged the reputation of the WBA, and it's brought their multiple belt situation into disrepute, basically. But it's not a situation that's as bad as people are making it out. It's not something that happens in every division, and it's not something that happens cynically, in my opinion, And again, saying that person, oh, it's not a real world title, well, that's just your opinion. Because the fact of the matter is, if that's not a real world title, then you're telling me that Anthony Mundine was never WBA champion. You're telling me Mikhail Kessler was never WBA champion. You're telling me that Carl Froch was never WBA champion. And correct me if I'm wrong, but nobody says that those guys weren't real world champions, do they? I mean, because again, that's the situation that comes to my mind. And that was in, 2003 or something like that, 2002, 2003, when Sven Ottke was the WBA champion. And he was obviously a unified champion. And he was ranked number 1 in the division. And he'd had about 20 title defenses of his other belt, right, the IBF. So he was made the super champion. As soon as he won the WBA, he became the super champion, right? And Anthony Mundine got to fight, what's his name? Anthony Mundine got to fight, I'm forgetting the guy's name now, the guy that fought Antoine Eccles for the title. But nobody was saying that was a fake world title. That's not a real world title. Nobody was saying that. Back then, everybody just understood he was the world champion. Ottke was the super champion. That was well understood back then. But for some reason now, people seem to have a problem with that. And I don't know why they've not had a problem with it over the years. I don't know why there are numerous American fighters, by the way, who like when Triple G won the WBA title, people weren't saying he was a fake champion, were they? Felix Sturm was the super champion. I don't recall anybody saying Triple G was a fake champion or his title wasn't real. So that's just a little rant I thought about making recently, because I know I didn't word it very well there, but it makes sense in my mind, and I think you guys can see where I'm coming from. Like, that situation is blown way out of proportion, and people get very, very angry at that whole situation, and I've never understood why, because it's a situation that's been around a very long time, very long time. Zab Judah was entertaining. He had that hands down, slick southpaw style. Very poor defense, though. He was wide open to get hit. He had kind of the same flaws that Roy Jones had, but he was very athletic and powerful and very entertaining to watch. Well, again, technically, there's only one WBA title. Like I'm saying, it's the world title, and then there's the super champion who doesn't have to defend it at the same rate. That's essentially what it is. Again, it's the same as the WBC having the Diamond Championship or the Franchise Championship. The only one that doesn't do it out of the major sanctioning bodies is the IBF, and that's why one of the reasons why I find the IBF to be by far the most credible. The IBF is by far the most credible of all the sanctioning bodies, because it's the one that follows its rules consistently and doesn't seem to be so cynical. They seem to be very, very consistent with how they do business, and they don't muddy the waters with things like super champion and unnecessary interim champions and stuff like that. They seem to just have the world champion And when they have an interim title, that guy gets his shot, or he gets the title. Basically, seems to be a lot more fair, in my opinion. You said you can go 12 rounds, right? Run 5K. You're in pretty good shape. You've been boxing for years. Why not have, mate? Trust me, I've been trying. See when I got to boxing gyms, it is so hard to get a fight. You wouldn't believe it in this country. Like I've seen in the past 2 years, I've trained at 4 different boxing gyms, tried my hardest to get a fight, sparred with guys. I've whooped guys in sparring. I've had like brutal gym wars, gotten myself bashed up, sparred many rounds, and I've talked to so many coaches about getting me on a show. The problem is I'm too bloody old. I'm 31 years old and nobody's interested. I'm 31 years old. I look goofy, I just don't have the look. I don't have the voice. I don't have the appeal that boxing gyms are looking for. So the best I can hope for is to just get a white collar fight or something, But I'm still trying to get an amateur fight. Like I was trying to get a fight this month actually in September, but they weren't having it, Apparently, I've got to wait until like later in the year or whatever. They just give me the runaround, They've been giving me the runaround for years, 15-1-12 Usyk, 14-1-13 Fury, 13-1-14 Usyk. Crazy, they had Usyk winning by 1 point, one in the scorecard. Yeah, and if he didn't get that knockdown or that standing 8 count, whatever you want to call it, he would have probably lost the fight, or at least been a draw. I think he probably would have lost, I only care for Usyk versus Caballero due to the body shots work rate, but it ain't happening. As Usyk said, he only has 1 fight left. Do you think he'll break this and fight on? Do you know, Usyk seems to me one of them guys. I think he'll know when enough is enough. Like when he's physically, like if he looks bad in his next fight, he'll probably call it a day. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah. Fraser Kendo, mate. Fraser Kendo was hanging around. He was hanging around for years. Somehow he had like some sort of legal case against the WBA, which I still to this day don't understand. I don't know what that case was or what he had over them. But apparently he was legally entitled to a title shot, but he never pursued it. He just hung around and talked about it and stayed around in the rankings, but never got the shot and just retired. Like, I don't know what that was all about, and yeah, I don't know why he never got the title, or why he never got the title shot. Yeah, champion emeritus is a little bit different. That's when a fighter retires a champion, and when he comes back, he gets made the champion emeritus, whereas it's kind of like he jumps the queue and becomes mandatory immediately. That's kind of what happens there. Vitaly Klitschko did that when he came back and fought Samuel Peter. He was the champion emeritus, and he got his title back. Yeah, they called Dillian a 2-time interim champion, world interim champion before Talma beat him. Yeah, WBC. Dillian White did have the interim title twice, but he was never the world champion. Super champion, international money grab. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Where you been to for holidays? Well, it's been years since I went on holiday. I went to Disney World when I was a kid. I went to Florida. I also went to the one in Paris as well shortly after. I went to Paris twice. I went to Paris when I was a very young kid, not Disneyland, just regular Paris. I barely remember it. I was like 4 years old or something, maybe not even that. When I was, I think, 10 years old, I went to Florida, Disney World. Couple of years later, that was when I went to Disneyland Paris. And again, this January, I'm going to Poland for a week. And I'm thinking of going to America again. My missus wants to go to New York or Miami, and one of my mates has talked about going to Miami as well. We thought about that. So yeah, we'll see what happens. IBF has some dodgy rankings at times, but they enforce their rules, which are like, yeah, I agree. And again, the dodgy rankings of the IBF are basically because there's a lot of guys in there who have undefeated records and have a string of wins against ranked guys, but they're not guys you've necessarily heard of. They're guys that have fought on small hall shows and have built up their name that way. So they're not big names, but a lot of them are pretty good fighters. But it just so happens when it's consistent that way, and guys get title shots based off merit, sometimes you just get guys who have a winning record, but they're not on the level of the champion. That's just what happens. It's natural, you know. But I've got no problem with a champion having a soft defense if the opponent is ranked, you know. Yeah, white collar fights, I would do that. I genuinely would. Just going to the toilet. I'll be back in a sec. Where was I? Did Scott Harrison get a new gym in the end? You seem to remember you said his old gym shut down. Yeah. Well, he rents a place in the city centre now. He rents like a studio, and he does like PT sessions there. So he's got like punching bags and like weights and stuff set up, and yeah, he basically brings people in to do like private PT lessons. And I don't know if he still does classes. And I know he doesn't have like an actual amateur boxing club anymore because he was denied a license. He was denied a license by Boxing Scotland to run a club. So he basically can't coach fighters anymore. Like, well, he can still do it, but he just can't do it officially. So yeah, he basically is just relegated to doing PT sessions now, which is unfortunate because he was a genuinely great coach, you know. A few white collar fights and then bare knuckle. Yeah, I would love to compete in bare knuckle. I just don't know. I don't know how to get into it. Like, I don't know where you'd even start with that, you know, to actually compete. Why you say you look goofy? You look like a Viking troll. Yeah, I do, don't know, a Viking troll. Grr. Yeah, I guess. No, but I do. Let's be honest, I do look kind of goofy. I'm the kind of person people look at me and they think I'm a wrong un or something, and I don't know. It's like they're surprised to learn I'm actually a nice guy. You know, they're surprised to learn it. I must just have that look. I look like a bit of a psycho. You know. Apparently, bare knuckle pays okay. Oh, that's all right then, isn't it? Sad if you can. It's good if you can actually get paid for something you love, innit? I'd love to get paid for beating people up. You know, in the ring. It'd be fun. Brian Norman versus. I've said this before. I think Brian Norman has the power and the athleticism to win that fight. I don't know if he'll get the decision though. I think Haney might just run away and steal a gift decision, as seems to be the case. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, hopefully, someone throws me a bone and gives me a fight. You know, hopefully, we'll see. Usyk gets an easy win on the 25th against an inexperienced opponent. Put him in with a Talma. Why not? It'll look good on the record anyway, based on all the hype he's getting. I wish you could make a vid or vids on the Usyk Fury fights, discuss this unclean punches with a partially open palm, which I feel shouldn't count. Do you know, I talked about that a lot in the early stages of this channel. I talked about how a lot of Tyson Fury's punches are backhanders and slaps and they shouldn't be counted. And I got so much aggro for that. I got so many dislikes and it kind of damaged my channel's growth. Like Tyson Fury's fan base used to like mass flag my videos and dislike them and try to get them banned and stuff, like just because I pointed out a lot of his illegal tactics. Maybe I should start again now that nobody likes Fury. I should start again. You know. Sad that the boxing power brokers seem to have shut Scott Harrison out. I know he had issues, but it seems like they have it out for him. Something more to it, maybe. Yeah, that's what it seems like to me. It's like they threw the book at him. Like the situation with him is, and this is one thing I know. Again, like Scott was the kind of guy. Like see when he was younger, when he was getting a reputation, and he was a champion. Bear in mind he's a small guy. He's like 5'4" and used to fight at featherweight, right? When he would walk into a venue, like let's say he would go to his local pub, or he would just go to the shops or something, everybody was out to get him. Like people would always, like, again, living in Glasgow, you know, and being the type of person he was, there was so many people wanted a reputation, so they would start a fight with him, and you know they would constantly like give him aggro and constantly like goad him. And there were so many negative influences around him. You know, people got him into drugs, got him into drink. And he just, I feel like the guy was just surrounded by negativity for years and years. And he lashed out at it, and he did a lot of stupid shit, got arrested, you know, beat a bunch of people up, had a bunch of street fights, bar fights and stuff like that. And I feel like he just like didn't handle the fame very well. And didn't handle the attention very well. And yeah, they threw the book at him. And that's the thing, because he was a kind of a minor celebrity, and because he was like, he had a reputation and stuff like that. Like the media, and particularly like the sporting media, hated him. Like, and they just did everything they could to shut him out. Like the boxing board absolutely despised him. Like the British Boxing Board of Control did everything they could to get him out of boxing. They just didn't want him in there. They didn't like him. He wasn't media trained. You know, if you look at some of the stuff people like Fury have gotten away with, and people like Billy Joe, they had the connections to sort them out and to get them back in the game and that. Like Scott didn't have that. Like he didn't have like powerful people backing him. He was just a working class guy who just happened to do very well in boxing. And yeah, they like I say, they threw the book at him and shut him out, and they had it in for him from a very early stage of his career, you know. So it's kind of sad because he could have done so much more, in my opinion. I think he could have been a 2-weight champion, like if he'd have got his license back and been able to sort himself out. It's a shame. And again, it sucks that they won't even let him be a coach, because I think that the absolute state of boxing in this country, in Scotland, it's shameful. Like you go to any amateur boxing club and they've got you doing air squats and burpees and all that, and very little punching, very little learning how to box, you know. But whereas you go to his gym and the first day you're in there, you're learning how to box. It's like, I think he would make a great like mentor and a great coach for a lot of young Scots wanting to box. I genuinely think, but it's like the media won't, and the boxing board won't permit that. They won't allow him to pass on his knowledge, basically. And it's a shame because his dad, like Scott's dad, is, in my opinion, like he was Scotland's best ever coach, in my opinion, but he has dementia. So he obviously can't train fighters like he used to. He's just not able. He doesn't have the mental faculties to do it. So his son could have kind of, that was the idea. His son was going to take over the gym and he was going to be the head coach and pass on that knowledge. But sadly, that's just not going to happen now because he's not permitted to do it by the board. He's not got the license to do it. So it's a shame. It really is. I feel bad about that, you know, but it is what it is. Usyk versus Parker, it just feels like a predictable outcome. I definitely think like I can see it being a one-sided fight, like Usyk outboxing him and winning on points, but that's not the point. Like the point is he's earned his shot. Parker has earned the shot at the title. Not only is he interim champion, but he's been mandatory for a long time. He's beaten all the top contenders in that conference, and he's beaten guys who other people didn't want to fight, guys like Bacoli and Zhang. And he's won in upsets and he's exceeded expectations. So, you know, I think that personally he should be able to get out of the queue and skip the queue. And well, he's not skipping the queue. He's in front. He should be getting that fight, you know. Imagine you had to fight Kamil Sokolowski and bare knuckle. He's smashing people in BK. Yeah, he's a tough guy, him. Like he was never going to be obviously like a top contender in boxing, but he's got the right kind of toughness and the right kind of attitude that suits bare knuckle, hasn't he? So he would be a tough guy for anyone to fight in that regard, you know. I don't root for fighters at all. However, I would like to see Norman knock Haney out. Yeah, I'd root for Norman. Haney is just a blight on boxing. That guy needs to bugger off, you know. Fury does have a cult following him for the mental health stuff, yeah. But that cult has disappeared. As soon as he lost to Usyk, they vanished. That Fury Usyk cult, like they were like Homer Simpson disappearing into the hedge. That's what that was like. They just vanished. And most of them ended up jumping on Italma, you know, jumping on Dubois. They go from one hype to the next. Boxing fans are fickle, as they say, you know, they're fickle. Fury's mental health weirdly pops up when he's under scrutiny. Yeah, Fury has like a mental breakdown if and when it's convenient. You know, he'll be having the time of his life, partying and living it up and going on vacation and spending like hundreds of thousands of pounds on drink and, you know, shouting and singing and just being being a party animal, having the time of his life. Then when it comes to taking responsibility and accountability for something, oh, I can't take responsibility. I'm sad. I have mental health and it's tiresome. It's tiresome. Haney got his justice by getting chinned by Ryan. Ryan got his justice for his racist comments when a half African Rolly drops him. Again, I think that was another fixed fight, the Rolly Romero one, you know. Boxing gyms these days are just barely boxing, just do push-ups. Mate, I've literally been to boxing. I've been to a boxing gym. You go outside and do a run around in a circle, then go in and do push-ups and air squats for the rest of the session. You're like, when do I get to hit the bag? Oh, later. Mate, I've told this story before, but I went to a gym in Glasgow, right? It was quite a popular gym in the West End of Glasgow. I don't go to it anymore because screw them, right? But I went to this gym and there was this lad, I think he was about 14 or something, hitting the bag, a little bit chubby, right? And he was new. I'm thinking it's his first day in the gym. This lad's hitting the bag, hurting his hands. He doesn't know how to punch. And I went up to him and I was like, all right, hey mate, do you want to jump on the pads? Because they had like some pads in a box, right? And I was like, you want to have a go on the pads? And he was like, yeah, all right then. So I taught this lad, I was like, jab, cross, hook. I just an uppercut. I taught him just basic punches. And it took me probably about a round and a half or something to teach this lad how to punch properly. And all of a sudden, he's hitting the bag and hitting the pads hard and fast. And this lad had like quite quick hands, and his technique became pretty good very quickly. I could tell he was a quick learner. And I asked this lad, I was like, "How long you been coming here?" And he said, 2 weeks, about 2 weeks. And I'm like, and see, when he told me that, my blood actually, like, my blood was boiling. I was like, wait, so you've been coming to this gym and you've been paying a fiver a session. You've been paying these people. You've been coming here for 2 weeks. And there's like 3 or 4 coaches at this gym. Not one of them thought to teach this lad how to throw a punch. This lad's been coming for 2 weeks and he's hitting the bag and he's hurting his hands. He doesn't know how to throw his punch. Doesn't know how to throw a single punch. Not one of these coaches who are supposedly like experienced, successful amateur coaches, not one of them thought, let's take this lad on the pads and teach him how to throw a punch. So, yeah, needless to say, I don't go to that gym anymore, and they can suck it. I've got no respect for scammers like that. It's like if you're not a like established long-time member of the gym, who's been there for a while and you know the coaches and you've already competed, you've boxed before, unless you're that, they're not interested in coaching you. They're not interested in teaching you anything. They'll just have you do sit-ups and air squats for a full session and take your money. That's the standard of boxing gyms in this country. But a guy like Scott Harrison, a former world champion, who doesn't matter how long it takes, he will teach you how to box. And he'll be patient and spend the time with you. He doesn't get a license, but clowns like those other people do. It makes me so angry. It really does, you know. I care about it a lot more than I should, to be honest, you know. They claim Fury won round 3 because he landed mostly at body shots. Fury landed mostly upstairs face body. Fury landed tippy tap jab. You should review must swing rounds. Yeah, I've never gave him round 3. I thought Usyk clearly won round 3 personally. I remember about a year ago a debate on social media on Tank versus Duran. Someone said that due to Davis never losing and having a higher KO percentage, he automatically knocks Duran out. Yeah, well, Wilder has a higher KO percentage than Fury, but Fury knocked him out, didn't he? Tells you everything, doesn't it? Rematch clauses have been problematic at heavyweight. There's been mandatories held up for years now and 3 interim champs at heavyweight. Yeah, I blame the fighters for signing it. They shouldn't sign the rematch clauses. If they don't want to have a rematch, they shouldn't sign it. So it's the fighters. It's the fighters' call. It's the ball's in their court. You know, if they want to not have rematches, they've got to stop. You know. Had been a trend of board abusing Scottish champion boxers, for example, Ken Buchanan and Harrison. Yeah, Ken Buchanan would have made a great coach. Like his son was a coach who was pretty good, but yeah, he would have made a great coach, I think. Your boxing nickname should be Stocky Supreme. Imagine that. Yeah, that's a funny nickname. Imagine. I am quite stocky. I think Lomachenko would school Chavez. I think he's leagues above him. Like Chavez was a tough guy with power, but Loma would school. In fact, you know what? Loma might even make him quit. Chavez had a lot of quit in him. He was a guy who, if he was getting embarrassed in a fight, he had the tendency to give up and quit. He quit a few times. So I think either Loma makes him quit or wins on points. If Norman knocks out Haney, he gets a free pass from me for a couple of years for a great service to boxing. In all seriousness, he could KO Haney. Yeah. If Norman KOs Haney, it'd be one of my favorite fighters. Because again, needs to get that guy out of boxing, you know. Fury Cult jumps to Dubois now. They jump to Dubois now. They jump to Atalma. Yeah, yeah, that's true. I remember I had a guy commenting on my video. I forgot what video it was. I think I blocked the guy. It was shortly before Usyk Dubois. A guy commented and said, we're going to get justice in the rematch. You just mad because Dubois got robbed first time. And now it's in UK. Usyk ain't going to be able to rob him and is going to get knocked out with a body shot or something. Someone said that to me. Like before the Dubois versus Usyk rematch. That was so funny. I'm just like, yeah, this guy won't be back. Even if I don't block him, he won't be back, you know. All these reactionary boxing fans all leave their man when they lose. Either they're the best thing ever or they absolutely suck. No loyalty or an in between. Yeah, exactly. Like people jump on a fighter and say he's the greatest ever, but if he loses one fight, he's a hype job. He was never any good. He was shit. He was crap. He's a bum. He ain't fought nobody. Like what they're saying about Fury now. Before they were saying he was a phenom and the greatest heavyweight ever. No man born from his mother can beat the great Tyson Fury. As soon as he loses, he never fought anybody. He never had a good resume. He just beat an old Klitschko. That's what those same people are saying now, you know. Normie's gonna normie, eh? Tipsy Queen landed an eye-catching shot in round 12. It looked like a slap. Commentators went nuts. Commentators always go nuts when the Western hype job does anything. The Western hype job can land like a jab from long range that catches the gloves, and they'll say, "Oh, the class, and the class." How about stop drinking and stiffing altogether, Fury? Yeah. That's a lot to ask for Fury because of his mental health. You know, he can't handle it. It's his mental health. He needs to be chemically enhanced, you know. Said this on Dell's Live. Romero now welterweight champion when Pacquiao and Cotto were once champion. Yeah. It says you a lot. It says a lot about the state of that division, doesn't it? Tells you everything you need to know. Yeah. I'll teach Gareth A. Davis how to box. Why not? Eh? No, I don't want Gareth A. Davis even. I don't want Gareth A. Davis breathing in my presence. I don't want to touch that guy. You know. Yeah, it happens all the times in clubs. They don't teach them properly. You know. I'm 19. I used to go to a great boxing gym where I felt myself getting better every day. I'm not able to go there anymore. I tried every other gym in my area. They're terrible. Yeah, most gyms are terrible. Most boxing gyms are full of normies, you know, who are just don't have a clue what they're talking about, you know. They have us run and do planks and push-ups and other nonsense. Comment, my current gym leaves you to go on the bag yourself, yeah. And neither one of those things is good. Like, again, if they're having you do cardio, like planks and all that, they're wasting your time and your money. If they're not teaching you how to box, they're still wasting your time and your money. But to be perfectly honest, I'd rather they leave me alone to train myself and hit the bag than make me do planks and push-ups. I'd rather, like, I'll do push-ups and planks if I want to. I can do those at home. You don't need to pay for it. Exactly, like Gareth says, you don't need to pay to do planks and push-ups. You can literally do that in the bedroom at home. You can do that anywhere, you know. The main coach only speaks Spanish. So I can't understand him. There's a language barrier there then. Yeah, and I know what you mean. I've been in the same situation for years now. It pisses me off too. Most coaches don't have a clue. Most of them are absolute morons, you know. Usyk versus Foreman. Usyk would school him, went on points. Foreman has a puncher's chance, that's it. Same with Lennox. I think Usyk just outboxes him. I think he's just too much skills, too fast. He's the better fighter by far. I wish Garcia was unleashed on Haney again. The boxing community needs this. He'd probably take a dive in the rematch. Garcia is a very, very easy to manipulate guy. Again, another mental health guy. Oi, bruv, don't joke about me mental health. Yeah, me mental health. Yeah, well, we've all got problems, you know. I agree. Still think Garcia has potential if he took the sport serious, but he doesn't. He doesn't take it seriously, and he never will. He genuinely is mentally ill, in my opinion. It's funny that the pub incident happened after Usyk beat up Fury. I guess it helps him forget what happened in round 9, yeah. He got knocked out in round 9, then he got knocked out in the pub by his own drinking habits, you know. That's what happens. Would you say, Nordic, it's best to learn boxing either home or gym? No, you need to go to a gym and you need to hit the bag, you need to hit the pads, you need to do something. But just be aware that your coach might know less about the sport than you. But you do need to train. Like, if you want to box, you need to go to a boxing gym. Even a bad boxing gym. Get some experience there. It's better than nothing, you know. Why should I do push-ups to get in shape, to actually learn how to box? Yeah, learning push-ups, doing push-ups is not going to teach you how to knock a man out. It's not going to teach you how to punch. All it's going to do is cause repetitive strain injuries. And again, I do overhead press in the gym and barbell squats. Why do I need to do push-ups and air squats? All that's going to do is interfere with my recovery. So what exactly am I getting from that? Absolutely nothing. All I'm getting, like I say, is repetitive strain injuries. That's it. Pouring a drink. Oh, I love that sound. I'm on to my second glass, my second pint glass, that is. Alright, I'm going to take a big drink of this because I'm thirsty. And when I talk, it makes me even more thirsty. Yeah, if they taught people to box, it would motivate them more. And their cardio would get better anyway, because that's the thing that happens. Like, conditioning is provided for by the practice. That's what they say, right? Conditioning is provided for by practice. By doing the sport, you will get conditioned for the sport. That's what will happen. So doing all that other stuff, ancillary cardio, is pointless. You can do that at home. You can do that anywhere. In the boxing gym, you should be learning how to box. It's like you don't go to a karate gym and spend half the session doing jumping jacks and air squats, do you? No, you learn how you learn the moves, you learn how to strike and how to defend. It should be the same in boxing. You should be learning how to box. That's what you pay for. That's what a boxing gym is. Boxing gyms are to learn how to box. Try telling that to your average Scottish boxing coach. They look at you as if you're sick in the head or something. It's, I know better because I'm the coach, because I've boxed before, blah, blah, blah. He got saved in round 9. But he should have gave the ref a drink. Wooch hit Fury harder than the drink or Usyk. What if you have a big nose that's a giant target? Can you become a good boxer? Well, Froch had a big nose. Yeah. Do a Froch, replace your nose. Look, Rocky Marciano had a big nose. Lots of fighters have big noses. You just got to defend it better. It is a target. It's a problem. It's probably a disadvantage, but you just learn to deal with it, don't you? You know, some people have bigger heads than others, you know. You need to hit a bag regularly to stay in sharp and have your kinetic chain in your punch. Yes, bag work is very important. Bag work conditions you for boxing probably better than almost anything else, aside from sparring, you know. Because you can hit, even with the pads, you can't hit as hard as you can on the bag, you know. The iron brew being poured is why the boxing coaches won't give Nordic a fight. Yeah, because of the iron brew. Like, once you kick your iron brew addiction, then you can have a fight. Do you know, if they told me that, I'd be like, I'll have to think about that one, you know. I'd have to think about it. What's the best style to have, Nordic? Boxing fundamentals are needed. Well, the best style just depends on your genetics and how your build is, you know, what your physical abilities are. That's all it is. It's different for anybody, you know. Do you think Mike Tyson's speed explosiveness could let him beat Usyk? He would definitely have speed advantage. I don't know. I think Usyk, Mike Tyson's more explosive, but I think Usyk's quicker. Usyk's quicker, particularly with straight punches. I think Usyk would keep him long range and outbox him similarly to how he did against Gassiev. And maybe even stop him late, because Tyson would fall apart mentally late in the fight. So, I think Usyk would win convincingly, I do. I went to a Russian gym. One of the younger coaches instantly took me on the pad. See, if you look at like the Russian school of boxing, they know how to train for boxing. And that's why they're able to train world-class fighters, guys like Kovalev and guys like that. You know, they're able to box. If you look at a guy like Povetkin, do you think he went to the gym to do sit-ups and air squats? No, he learned how to box, and that's how he had such good punching technique, you know? Yeah, it's weird how boxing's the only combat sport. Yeah, no other combat sport. Like, you go to a jiu-jitsu class, they're not going to have you run in circles and do air squats, are they? At least not most of the time. They're going to have you roll on the mat. And you get conditioned for jiu-jitsu by doing jiu-jitsu. It's the same with boxing. Yeah, I take it a lot of trainers in England are like that too. A lot of coaches, like it's terrible in this country, mate. The way that they try to teach boxing, you know, that's why we can't produce any consistent world champions anymore. You know, we used to, but we don't anymore. You know, usually after a tiring day or to relax, a cold iron brew is gorgeous with some Dr Pepper. Oh yeah, see, I don't mind Dr Pepper. I think it's okay, but I prefer iron brew. Yeah, Iron Brew is my PED of choice. Iron Brew gives me like the boost of energy I need. Like, if they do a drug test on me, it'll test positive for Iron Brew, and my entire career will be wiped off record. You know, they put Iron Brew on the ban list just to get me. You know, brings an Iron Brew crate to the gym. Can you imagine that? Like, I remember I used to drink like cans of Iron Brew right before going to the gym. It wasn't a good idea, but I used to do it, thinking it gave me stamina, you know, thinking it gave me a boost of sugar. What style do you have now? Well, I would describe my style as just a basic low volume pressure fighter. So I keep my high guard. I come forward pretty much all the time, and I try to like break my opponent down with like single shots, basically. So like I'll block and I'll slip and I'll throw a hook, or I'll throw a jab to intercept my opponent's jab, back them up to the ropes, work the body, and start like backing them up skillfully and tactfully. And you'll notice when my opponent moves laterally, I'll move my back foot first to try to cut off the ring. Like, I've got some like sparring clips where I do that, but it's like, again, it's a situation where I try to do it without exerting myself. I don't go like gun ho and try to like blast my opponents out of there like Inoue. I try to like walk them down slowly. And obviously, it's different sparring than it would be in a fight. If I'm in an actual fight, like if I'm competing, there'll be no inhibition. I'll throw my punches with full intent. I won't pull them. But when I'm sparring, I never go like 100%. Like I never do that, you know. Even if my sparring partners are, I don't do it. If he puts some Conte's protein powder in, yeah. If I get on that snack diet and put some of those Conte roids or quote unquote supplements in my iron brew, it'll help, you know. Marciano knocked out Ezra Charles. His nose was split open. Hard man. Yeah, like I was saying, he had a big nose and it was a big target for his opponents. But listen, he made it work to his favor. Maybe it caused his opponents to be a bit over eager, try to hit that target, you know, leaving themselves open for counters. Could happen, you know. Another thing I noticed with trainers is they don't take into account a person's body mechanics and body type when training them. Exactly. And see, that was one thing that separated Scott Harrison from any other Scottish coach I've ever worked with, is he instantly talked about that. Like, he'll talk about your arms are really short, so you can defend this way, or you get inside and you need to, you need to put your shoulder on the opponent's chest. And he would talk about things like that. He would talk about like the technicalities, like keep your chin tucked and your hands by your cheek when you're inside, so that you don't and if you're going to clash heads, make sure that you don't get cut, you know, make sure that only the top of your head is colliding with the opponent. So if anybody gets cut, it's them, not you. Like, he would talk about things like that while you're on the bag and on the pads. And he was very, very technical about it. I've not heard that from any other coach. I've not heard it from a single coach aside from him, you know. Yeah, Iron Brew is a childhood classic, yeah. It's my childhood classic, I tell you. Yeah, sometimes they might take you on the pads if you're lucky. Very rarely do I ever get to hit the pads. In see the gyms I go to now, very rarely do I get a chance to hit the pads. And when I do, it's like a round and a half, if even that. When I was with Scott Harrison, we'd sometimes do like 4 rounds in a row on the pads and then sparring, you know. Yeah, Povetkin was technically one of the best fighters I've ever seen, you know. Did you see Callum Smith and Bevel's arm after fighting Canelo? Yeah, Canelo was hitting him in the arm, which is kind of pointless in my opinion. But yeah, he does that. Supposedly, it weakens the opponent, takes away the jab. I don't know. If an opponent hits me in the arm, it doesn't bother me until afterwards, you know, until the adrenaline goes down, you know. The Roy Jones, Naz, and Martinez styles are reached probably because they are more popular, flashy, and attract more fans. At your age, though, boxers will end up with brain damage. Yeah. With that style, again, I mentioned earlier with Zab Judah, if you get caught with your hands down, off balance like that, you're going to get dropped or you're going to get hurt badly, and that's what happened to those guys when they got caught clean, right? Whereas if you get a guy like again, Del Boy says here, Nordic's the Scottish Arthur Abraham. Exactly. Arthur Abraham, how often did he end up on the canvas? How often did he get knocked out? Well, never, because he was a guy who always had his hands up, always had his chin tucked, and remembered the fundamentals and paced himself. He didn't need to jump around all flashy. He used what he was good at, and that was, again, blocking, slipping, walking down the opponent skillfully and trying to take them out with properly delivered punches, you know. Right. Nordic's boxing debut cancelled due to extreme levels of iron brew found in blood. Faces 18-month suspension. Catch the full story tonight on HBO. Yeah, the Lance Armstrong of boxing. Like I'll have to give an apology video. Like, I'm sorry, guys, I messed up. I don't know why I did it. It was a tainted supplement, you know. It was a tainted wham bar that was iron brew flavored. I don't know. I'm sorry about my iron brew usage. A weird thing is boxers that start in their 20s usually can string a sentence after they finish boxing. Yeah, because usually they're a bit more cautious than a lot of the young guys who think they're odd, you know. I'm 6'1" with an arm length longer than Vlad Klitschko, and I've had idiots try to teach me how to bob and weave. Yeah, exactly. Look, if you're 6'1", and again, you're a thin guy with a very long reach compared to most guys your weight, right? There is no reason to go in there and bob and weave, because you're just going to leave yourself wide open for a big left hook counter or a big overhand right. What you should be doing is learning to fight kind of with a bit of a pendulum step, you know, move laterally, pump out the jab, throw it from different angles, kind of like Larry Holmes or Tyson Fury using the height, right? Keep the opponent at long range and employ lead hand control. And when your opponent gets too close to where you can't escape, smother them. Put your arms where they need to be. Like keep your right hand by your chin, keep your left hand defending your body, and like lean in and manipulate the opponent inside, control them. You don't want to be at mid-range, bobbing and weaving with a guy shorter than you who's going to knock you out while you're doing it. Like there's no reason for that. Someone your size, it should be long-range boxing and then smother the opponent. So you're on the outside, scoring points, controlling the opponent with long-range boxing. Then when the other guy gets closer to you and you can't get away from him, then you smother him and you defend yourself inside. Absolutely, under no circumstance should someone of your dimensions and size be bobbing and weaving like Mike Tyson. That would be like telling me, and I'm only about 5'8", and I'm heavy for my height, right? I've been about like 93 kilograms at 5'8", something like that. Like that would be like me trying to fight like Vladimir Klitschko. That'd be like me trying to jab, grab from long range. It's insane. No coach who knows what he's talking about should be having you do that, He should be having you fight in a way that suits you, It's crazy. Whereas Scott now, he's doing PT sessions. I was talking about this earlier. He's got a studio that he rents in the city centre. I think it's in the city centre anyway. And he rents it out for PT sessions. And yeah, he's doing all right with that for now, I think. But he's not running an amateur boxing club anymore because he doesn't have a license, As an amateur, I had coaches that never taught me to throw a left hook right after a cross. So many don't know how to beat a southpaw. Yeah. Do you know that's one thing I'm terrible at? I've sparred with southpaws. I'm terrible at it. I really struggle with them. I had a video and I don't know what happened to it, but I'm sure I had this video somewhere. It was the last sparring I ever did at Scott Harrison's gym, and I was sparring this Asian guy. He was a switch hitter, but he spent most of it in southpaw. And I ended up, I caught him in the first round with a jab, and it gave him a bloody nose. So I did all right in the first round, but then he switched to southpaw, and see when he switched to southpaw, I couldn't hit him. I couldn't land a shot on this guy, and like I was trying to like throw my right hand, and he would like pull away from it and counter me with his left. And it was like I got completely schooled. I think we sparred 3 rounds. I probably won the first round. Again, I bloodied his nose up. And then in the second round, he switched to southpaw, and he completely schooled me. I couldn't land a shot on him. I don't think I landed a single punch. And I was thinking to myself, wow, I'm really inexperienced against southpaws. Like, it's something I just don't seem to be able to handle. And it's like, I remember, like, around about that time, I was on the pads as well. And the guy I was on the pads with, like, went in a southpaw stance. And even that confused me. Like, it seems to be something I just don't have much experience with it. Like, I'm terrible against southpaws. I just can't seem to deal with it, It's one of them. But yeah, a lot of coaches don't teach it because they don't see it very often, Boxing gyms are the same in southern USA where I'm from. Yeah, I take it it's just a worldwide problem. Like, there's so many gyms who just really, really don't. They don't understand boxing fundamentals or how to teach them. Sadly, if you're a short guy, you should be reached to have an inside fighting style. If you're long and rangy, you should be taught outside, teached on outside boxer puncher style, common sense, really. Yeah, I agree with that. And you should be taught how to deal with certain styles as well. That's the good thing about sparring with multiple different fighters of different sizes and styles, I don't know. Froch versus Callum Smith. I think Callum Smith's a better fighter than Froch, but Froch was a lot tougher, better chin, better stamina. But I do think Callum Smith was a better boxer, a better fighter, and a bigger puncher too. I'd probably go with Callum Smith on points in a competitive fight, but on points. I get that the coaches have favourites, which are the amateurs who are already good. I get why they're favorite, but the inexperienced guys are paying, so they should get at least a little help. Mate, see if I was running a boxing gym, every single person in that gym who has paid their dues is getting taken on the pads. Every single one of them is sparring. I don't care what anyone says. Every single one of them is hitting the bag. Every single one of them is getting taught footwork drills and how to punch. Like they're getting taught shadow boxing and things like every single one of them. I don't care, even if they're wanting a fight or not. If they're in, like, if I was running a boxing gym, right, in my gym, everybody's getting taught to box, every single person, because that's what it is. It's a boxing gym. Try telling that to most boxing coaches in this country. They'll flip out over it. They think it's take your money, your fiver or whatever, and then just leave you alone or have you do push-ups and air squats. It's sad, to be honest. Iron Brew is the new snack here. Yeah, the Scottish snack. Everyone online is 6'5" with a 7-foot wingspan and a 160 IQ. Yeah, it's kind of like everyone online is an undefeated, backyard pit fighter. Everybody's Kimbo Slice, or everybody's Frank Dukes online. Everybody's got like a 9-pack and a full head of hair and all that. Everybody on here is just perfect. Practically perfect in every way. But of course, they won't show you their photo. They won't show you. Like, I'll show you guys what I look like. You guys all know what I look like. But like all these like 6'4", 9-pack having Giga Chads, they won't show you what they look like. Imagine the gym owner seeing a roided Nordic and they ask what to do. He pulls out a crate of Iron Brew. Yeah. How did you get so roided? How'd you get so jacked? But here, Iron Brew. That's how it is. Often coaches put the fighters they favor in with experienced boxers. Instruction is to batter the guy. Yeah. Mate, I've experienced that. I've jumped in the ring with guys and I'm thinking it's a light spar. I've been told it's a light spar and they go in there and try to smash my face in. It's happened before. I've gone in there and gotten the better of guys and I've talked about this before. And then the coach has bitched and moaned about it, saying I'm using the wrong gloves and all that, because I got the better of his guy. There's so much petty nonsense in boxing gyms, there's so many egos. I don't like it, I paid $100 for 2 weeks of training and they just had me doing workouts while the better fighter got to do drill. Mate, that's pathetic. It pisses me off. It makes me so angry because, again, I've experienced it. I've experienced it where I'm in the gym and there's the experienced fighters are in the ring sparring and doing like multiple rounds on the pads. And I'm stood there with some other guy who's telling me to do push-ups in air squats. I'm not even allowed to hit the bag. I've even been told off for hitting the bag because it's making too much noise, and they're trying to tell I'm not even kidding, and they're trying to tell the guys in the ring what to do in their fight and all that, and I'm hitting the bag hard and making a lot of noise from it, and they're telling me to stop hitting the bag. Crazy, it really is. I'm like, I wanted to say to me, put me in one of these skinny like anorexic lads that you're training. Put me in the ring with them, and let's have a full contact fight, and let's see what happens. I've thought about saying that, but I know if I say it, I'll just get kicked out, or they'll put me in with a heavyweight to get my face smashed in, Zab Judah hands down style got timed against Costa Zoo. That style is incredibly risky. Possibility of getting chinned is way greater. And do you notice what happened about that fight? That fight should be studied in all boxing gyms. The first round, people were crediting Judah for winning the first round, right? If you look at the first round, Costa Zoo is just probing and feinting with the lead hand, and he's trying to time Zab Judah to find an opening for the target. Early in the second round, he completely figures out Zab Judah. He figures him out. He has him completely timed. And at the end of the round, he lands that perfect right hand. There was no coming back from it. Judah was done. If the fight had continued, if he'd have gotten through the round, he would have just got bounced up and down off the canvas until he couldn't continue, until he would have got brutally knocked out. Because he was just completely timed by the more fundamentally sound, better fighter, the better boxer with more brains and more experience, That was what happened. Got to clock in now. Peace. Yeah, God bless you, man. Good to see you here. The Asian Usyk versus no, yeah, the guy was a switch hitter. He was Asian. He was really quick. I'm gonna try and find that footage, and if I can, I might even upload it. It was the last sparring that I ever did at Scott Harrison's gym. I might upload it if I find. I might have it on a drive or something like that, or either that or I accidentally deleted it. I don't know. If I can find it, I'll consider uploading it. We'll see. I got kind of embarrassed though. I'm not gonna lie. Like in the second and third round, I got completely embarrassed. I genuinely did. I know this is a completely random question, Nordic, but I heard on a previous live stream you had a video on Boxing Librarian you deleted. Oh yeah, that was just a video where I took the piss out of Boxing Librarian for being a bellend, but I felt kind of bad about it afterwards because afterwards people were like falling out with him and like taking the mick out of him because I kind of highlighted certain things about him that people didn't really think about, and when I highlighted it, like everybody realized, and he fell out with like most of the people in the community, so I felt bad about it and I took it down, and he was going around like saying to people, he was telling like everybody in the community, if they associate with me, he will block them. He was telling them if anyone even talks to me, he'll block them. That I'm not even kidding. He said that. So yeah, or if anyone has me on their channel, and he'll block them, and like he's just blocking everybody. And yeah, I felt sad about that, so I took it down. I did. I regret doing it. I genuinely regret doing it. With southpaw, keep your left foot outside the southpaw leg. Yeah, see, that's what I should have been doing, but I was just kind of boxing like I was boxing an orthodox. And I think the adjustment he made was to switch to southpaw, and I just couldn't handle it, The boxing thing needs to be addressed, yeah. Yeah, boxing needs to have coaches who are taught how to coach properly. But who's going to teach them? Because the culture is you just get a bunch of young, fit, healthy, athletic lads and have them do push-ups and burpees, and you'll have a successful gym potentially. That's how it is, The quality is awful, in a lot of gyms. It is what it is. Best gym I went to was about 10 years ago. It was run by Graham Earl, but he got banged up shortly after, and the gym changed hands. Earl wasn't there much and had some decent trainers. Yeah, that's a shame. Yeah, sounds like that was a good gym. And yeah, Graham Earl, again, a guy with his experience would have made a good coach, no doubt about it, because he boxed, for a long time. So it would make sense for him to be a good coach. But again, if he got banged up, that would have threw a wrench in the whole thing. And again, similar to what happened to Scott, it's legal trouble that cost him from being able to be a coach. Sadly, Groot be like, I am Brew. Instead of I am Groot, I am Brew. Imagine that. Brilliant. Oh yeah, Usyk versus Povetkin, prime for prime. That would have been a banging fight. That would have been a great like I think it would have been similar to the Briadis fight. I think it would have been similar, maybe even better. Maybe even more interesting, He just can't handle the power. Just offer to fight the coach. Do you know what I've thought about that? There's one coach. I'm not going to say any names, but there's one coach, and he's quite a young guy. I believe the guy's actually younger than me, but he's a coach. And this guy was like bragging about how when he goes on the bag, he throws more punches than all the guys in the gym. Right? He's like, oh, I outwork everybody in here and all that. And even though I'm the coach, and you guys are supposed to be fighters, and I'm just thinking to myself, this guy's about 8.5 stone, maybe 9 stone, soaking wet. No shit, he's able to throw more punches. I'm what, 93 kilograms or something. I'm like 4 stone heavier than this guy. I'm not going to go in there and throw like 1,000 punches and every round. But I'm thinking to myself, the punches that this guy's throwing on the bag, is every punch he's throwing with proper technique? Because when I hit the bag, I'm not throwing 1,000 punches, right? But every single punch I throw is thrown with power. Every single punch I throw is thrown with proper technique. I'm not wasting energy. I'm conditioning myself to actually punch properly. So when that guy goes into a ring, like if I was to spar that guy, and he, bear in mind my size and weight advantage, right? If that guy goes in there to try to throw 1,000 happy slappy punches with incorrect technique, what's going to happen? He's going to get knocked out. Or I'm going to whack him with a couple of jabs and a couple of hooks, and then he's going to stop and rethink and have to reset and adjust, isn't he? He's not going to go in there and throw 1,000 punches and win. So it's like, if you're doing that, if you're in the gym and that's how you're teaching people to train, you're essentially teaching them to train wrong. You're teaching them to punch incorrectly. So they're conditioning themselves to punch incorrectly. So when they fight, what's going to happen? They're going to punch incorrectly. And those punches that are incorrectly thrown are going to cause them to lose and potentially get knocked out, you know? It's like, let's say if you're a baseball player and you're like, I throw the baseball, like, and you're training to play baseball, right? I know it's a little bit different, but I throw the ball 1,000 times in 3 minutes. I just pick up the ball, throw it, pick it up again, throw it as fast as I can, as quickly as I can, no rest in between. Is that going to teach you to play baseball? You know, when you're pitching in baseball, is that gonna condition you to be a great pitcher? No, because you've been practicing pitching wrong. You've been practicing pitching incorrectly. So when it becomes time to pitch, to throw the ball, you're going to throw it incorrectly and you're going to miss and you're going to lose the game. That's what's going to happen. You know, and again, when you practice throwing the ball, are you practicing with a heavier ball? Is that going to make you stronger? No, you're practicing incorrectly. So your technique is going to be poor. It's the same with boxing. Boxing coaches don't seem to understand this. You don't stand there and throw 1,000 punches on the bag and have that condition you how to throw punches and how to win a fight. Whereas what I do on the bag, where I'm actually hitting the bag properly with proper technique, that's much more likely going to serve me in a fight, you know? All right, where was I in the chat? I've gone on so many tangents, haven't I? Yeah, they love tall anorexic boxers who are often fragile when hit. Yeah, you see a guy in the gym who's like 6'1", is like 18 years old or something, and he's like, I need to get down to 65 kilograms. And then I'm just like, that lad's starving himself to death, and he's probably going to end up with brain damage by the age of 20. Like, seen it happen. I've seen it happen. Usyk versus either Klitschko would have been mental. Vitali was tougher, but they both love to grab the smaller man. Yeah, I think Usyk would have had a chance against either one of them, but they would have been great fights, in my opinion. Yeah. Boxing teachers are PE teachers. That's basically what they are, glorified PE teachers. You know. How good do you think Duran was? How do you see doing? Yeah, Duran was very good. A very versatile fighter as well. Tough guy, but a great technician. He'd have done very well in this day and age, I think. You into board games? What's your favorite? Do you know when I was a kid, I really liked Scrabble. I liked Scrabble. I loved Monopoly. I actually had 3 different types of Monopoly. I had the original, like normal Monopoly. I had a Star Wars Monopoly and a Pokemon Monopoly. I loved those when I was a kid. I used to like Kaplunk. I used to like Mousetrap. I used to like... I played a little bit of chess when I was a kid. I don't remember. I've not played that in years and years. I don't even think I remember the rules anymore. But yeah, I used to like those. Scrabble was really fun, and Monopoly was really fun. I liked Frustration. Do you remember that? Frustration, that was fun. I enjoyed that. So yeah, I like quite a few board games. I've not played a board game in quite a while, but I do like board games. I do like them. If you like this matchup, Nordic, who would you pick? Ruslan Chagayev, Sultan Ibragimov. Do you know both of those guys are very, very similar. Very, very similar. I think Chagayev was technically a little bit technically better than Ibragimov, as well as a little bit tougher. Ibragimov was a little bit more athletic, a little bit quicker, faster, better body puncher and all that. I think Chagayev was a bigger puncher and had better defense. I think that would be a very close fight, very cagey fight, very technical fight. I'd go with Chagayev by a close decision, very close decision. I think it would be a close decision for Chagayev. That's how I see it. It would be an interesting fight, though. Nordic chinning coaches heavyweights to straw weights and piss. Yeah, I'm chinning everybody nowadays, isn't I? I'm chinning Big John Fisher lookalikes, semi-professional footballers, anorexic amateurs, and big heavyweights. I'm chinning everybody. I'm getting chin sometimes as well, but I'm mostly doing the chinning, Crazy how many. It's crazy how I've had so many punch-ups in and out of the ring, like in the past year or so, but I've still not been able to compete in boxing. It's so weird, isn't it? Oh man, it is what it is. Yeah, you notice Nordic, how apparent defensive geniuses like Tony and Ali have brain damage quite badly when they're older. Caveman brawlers like Duran, Chavez, and Pacquiao speak just fine. Yeah, guys like Pacquiao are like cavemen who just swing for the fences and have got no defense and no intelligence. But James Toney is a defensive wizard who never gets hit. The man who physically couldn't get hit. And yeah, he can barely string a sentence together by the age of 40. Muhammad Ali was, again, wheelchair ridden and dealing with Parkinson's in the later part of his life, mostly brought on by boxing. But, he was the greatest defensive fighter ever, apparently, It's ridiculous. Ridiculous, isn't it? Holyfield would get schooled by Usyk. I think Usyk wins easily. I think Fury's too big for Holyfield, so he just outboxes him from long range and wins on points, I think. Who's more creepy to you, Nordic? The Gad or Shalom? Probably the Gad. Because, his obsession with Fury, I've always found very unsettling. And he's just an unsettling person anyway, the way he behaves, True bag work and shadowboxing should emulate actually boxing an opponent, not throwing silly punches. Yeah, you shouldn't just stand there and go, throwing 100 punches a minute. No, you should be there setting up things with your jab and throwing powerful, accurate punches with proper technique and proper speed. That's what you should be doing. And every single punch you throw on the bag should be thrown with power, as far as I'm concerned. That's how you condition yourself for boxing, Tony sparred too much. Ali got justice, what he did and said to people. Yeah, spiritual justice, without a doubt. Yeah, now Usyk would knock out Ali, in my opinion. Probably even in the first round. I think boxing, particularly at heavyweight, has advanced so much since Ali's day that I just think I think Usyk would wreck him. I genuinely do, prime for prime. Ali had so many limitations. Yeah, he did. He was very defensively poor, fought with his hands down, got caught with a jab. His own jab was quite limp-wristed and it wasn't very accurate. He wasn't that good. He was just an athlete in an era of big, slow sluggers, most of which were shorter than him and had a shorter reach than him. When he fought Larry Holmes, a guy who was similar to him dimensionally, but so much better technically, he got schooled. Didn't win a moment of that fight. He got schooled. Taken apart by him. He got beaten up by Joe Frazier, who was significantly smaller, Ali said he wants to be with his own, yet had a white trainer and insulted Frazier to the point where Frazier's kids got threatened. Yeah, calling him a gorilla and all that. But it's the white man that's the racist one, while Ali was the one going around calling another man a gorilla. One of his fellow black brothers calling him a gorilla. Like, why would you do that? And yet call yourself a champion against racism or whatever he called himself, the voice of the ghetto. Calling his hand the ghetto blaster and all that, and then going around calling that man the gorilla. That was just disgraceful what he did, Usyk would either win on points or a late stoppage. I think Larry Holmes was one of the greatest heavyweights from his era. I think Usyk has surpassed him though. Way better stamina, way better skills, Yeah, later, dude. Have a good one, man. God bless you. Yeah. Frazier did a lot for Ali, helped him get his license back, helped him get out of prison, and the way he was treated for it was disgraceful. But I'm glad he gave Ali a beating. He got his own back against him. So he got his comeuppance. And, Frazier, I guess you could say to some extent, got his retribution, and I'm happy for him. I genuinely am. God bless him. Oh yeah, yeah. The left hook that Fraser caught Ali with and dropped him was insane. Like in the last round, that was brutal. And well, I'm surprised Ali got up. Like, to his credit, Ali was tough, like mentally and physically, to get through that. You know, hard to see Ali was the GOAT when he lost to a small 5'10" Fraser, who would be a light heavy these days. Yeah, I mean, would Fraser beat Sergey Kovalev or Beterbiev? I don't think so. I think he gets knocked out. But yeah, people say, "Oh, Ali beat Fraser, so he's the GOAT." Who did Fraser beat? That's worth talking about, aside from Ali. You know, Fraser wouldn't be nearly as highly thought of as he is if he didn't beat Ali. That's another thing. Yeah, technically Ali did quit. It's just that Fraser's corner basically set him up and cost him the win in the third fight. Floyd Patterson was all right. He was a good heavyweight of his time. You know, good, strong, aggressive, come forward brawler with decent power and speed. Decent fighter. Yeah, Fraser was a good body puncher, but very defensively poor and wasted a lot of energy just bobbing and throwing the left hook. Very predictable fighter. His style would be very difficult to get away with today, you know. Fraser wouldn't even beat Wilder. Yeah, probably wouldn't. Also, Sonny Liston had the death stare. Yeah. Sonny Liston was an intimidating guy. He was scary, dude. That's the kind of guy you wouldn't want to mess with on the street, you know. Fraser did beat Joe Bugner, to be fair. Bugner was a tough one. Yeah, Bugner wasn't a very good boxer, but he was very tough. He was very tough. Big, strong, tough guy with a good chin, decent power. Yeah, Fraser did beat him, to be fair. Yeah, RIP to them all. God bless them. Another fighter Ali racially insulted was Patterson. Yeah, he did. Ali used race to sell a lot of his fights. He was very, very disrespectful to his opponents in that regard, you know, which is very weird because he didn't say anything racist towards Rocky Marciano, which I thought was weird. Like, Ali seemed, that was a weird thing about Ali. He would talk about the white man and racism and all that, and he would make himself out to be the victim. He would also constantly racially abuse other black fighters, like the way he treated Patterson, Liston, Terrell, Fraser, and Foreman. Like, in particular, those guys, the way he spoke about them was horrible, you know. But like, when he was talking to Rocky Marciano and when he sparred with Rocky Marciano and they had that exhibition, Ali seemed to genuinely respect Rocky Marciano. And when he talked about him, he seemed to think Rocky Marciano was better than him. And that's one of them dynamics, them situation I've never been able to understand. Like, what was it about Rocky Marciano that Ali respected so much? Like, why? Go look at the old interviews. He never said a bad word about Rocky Marciano. He always was very respectful, and he even said he didn't know if he'd have been able to beat him. He thought he might not have been. So I found that, and he explicitly stated that Rocky Marciano was better than Joe Fraser. He explicitly stated that, you know. If you mildly criticize Ali, it's considered blasphemy. Sonny Liston was barely 6 foot, not the heaviest, plus slow as a snail, and Ali had several fixed fights. Yeah. Again, if you criticize Ali, they say you're a casual. I'm like, a casual. I'm like, look, I'm the casual for actually studying fights and pointing out inconsistencies with how fights are covered. Yeah, sure. Yeah, Foreman, I think, sparred with Liston. There's actually a deleted scene in the movie. Do you know the George Foreman movie? I've got the DVD. There's a deleted scene in the movie where Foreman spars with Sonny Liston. And you know the guy who plays Sonny Liston in the movie, it's Cedric Boswell, you know, that guy that got knocked out by Povetkin on the Hellenius Chisora undercard. That guy, Cedric Boswell, yeah, Povetkin knocked him out. He played Sonny Liston in the movie. And yeah, there's the deleted scene where he spars with he spars with George Foreman. Thought that was interesting. Not sure why they removed that scene, you know. Probably just for time's sake, I guess. I think Bob and Weave style worked back then because it is so erotic. Yeah, true. Ali seemed to have timed him at times, but Ali couldn't keep Fraser off him with a jab. Yeah, it's erratic. I said that about Mike Tyson. Like, when he did the Bob and Weave, he would do it so fast and so explosively that his opponent's nervous system wasn't even able to react to it. So I could see why it was a problem. But nowadays, guys are trained to physical and mental peak, and they could probably handle it. You know, they could probably handle it easily, if truth be told, you know. Ali, the real Tom. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Ali said that Marciano would have been one of the men he thought he could beat himself. Rocky had many people's respect. Rocky was crude but effective and brutal. Yeah. Again, I just find that situation very strange because, like, again, a lot of other heavyweights from that era, like Larry Holmes and all that, they talk mad trash about Rocky Marciano. They say they beat him up and all that. It'd be easy work. But Ali was always respectful to Rocky Marciano. I don't know what that was all about. Like Rocky Marciano, I guess in the like people who knew him, had been around him and had sparred with him, knew how good he was and knew how like effective he was and respected him for that, you know. Like it's like Ali didn't want he didn't want any smoke. He didn't want, even at that stage, to have a fight with an old Rocky Marciano, you know. Ali versus Johnny Fisher, 50-50, eh? Yeah, Liston. Well, I mean, the first Liston fight was investigated by the FBI. It's well believed by a lot of people that Liston took a dive in both fights, you know. Yeah, they cut out that scene where Liston was sparring Foreman. I'm not sure why. Again, I think it was just for time's sake, you know. Ali hands low defense and could only fight as the taller, longer fighter. He wouldn't impose himself on Usyk and Fury. Would jab him to death with that 85 tapsy jab, then ragdoll him in the clinch. Yeah, they're far too big and strong and quick and athletic for him. He wouldn't stand a chance, in my opinion, you know. Interesting that the Foreman movie had a deleted scene with Liston. I thought in the movie, why was Liston skipped so quickly? Yeah, that's weird because you see Liston in the movie for one scene when he shows up, like in the theatrical version. You see him for a moment and he shows up and then they say that's Sonny Liston. And he's only on screen for a few seconds. And then right after that scene, in like the deleted scene, they were sparring, and it shows you like a sparring session between them. I don't know why they deleted it. Again, must have just been for time's sake, you know. Rocky deserves more love. Had respect. Ali had respect for Rocky. Yeah, I agree. Rocky Marciano is often disrespected, but a lot of people, like including Ali himself, had a crazy amount of respect for him, and there's a reason why. There really is. Where can you view the footage? Well, I've got the DVD and it's in the extras, the deleted scenes. Can Crawford beat Leonard? No. Leonard in his prime would smash Crawford, in my opinion. I think he'd probably stop him. Like Lee's above him, in my opinion. On that note, though, I'm going to wrap this up. We've been going for over 3.5 hours. Yeah, I've got stuff to do. So yeah, thanks a lot, guys. I don't know when my next one will be. Hopefully pretty soon. Hopefully get some videos too. So thanks to everybody who stopped by. God bless each and every one of you. And yeah, see you all next time. Thanks guys. God bless you.